Welcome to Love to See It, a podcast about being rescued and doing that rescuing right back.
We're going to treat you so nice during this podcast. You're never going to want to let us go. If you turn this episode off, big mistake. Big. Huge.
It's pretty subtle, but you might be able to pick up that we are doing a rom-com rewatch this week. We are getting in our time machines. We're heading back to 1990 LA to discuss Pretty Woman.
And here to join us is our friend and brilliant comedian, someone who we know will treat us so nice, Josh Gondelman, whose new special, Positive Reinforcement, is premiering on YouTube on June 27th. Josh, welcome to the pod.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so delighted to be here and so delighted to chat Pretty Woman.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. So just to kick us off, what is your relationship like with romantic movies in general?
I go up and down. I have some favorites for sure. I can be sometimes a little grumpy about a movie that coasts on romance vibes without making a lot of sense. I feel like it's a flaw of mine where I can't just like soak up the chemistry all the time. When a movie is like fully like I was such a jerk like in high school when my high school girlfriend would be like, let's go, we went to see, this is aging me very specifically, but I remember seeing Kate and Leopold in theaters with
I did too, Josh.
Yeah.
I saw that in theaters.
and going
Not
like,
a good movie.
No.
what is this?
Not
Like,
good, but everyone was
you-
like, it's Meg Ryan. We
Yeah.
have to see it.
And was it Hugh
Ca-
Jackman?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they were like, we don't even have to try to make the time travel make sense.
No,
That's not
it was-
the point.
And there are great time travel rom-coms. Like I love Palm Springs. I love
Mhm.
Groundhog Day, even though that's like a little,
Yes.
it's a little more dubious as a rom-com because it's mostly his story.
Still
but-
love it though.
Yeah, it's so great. But like Kate and Leopold is like, wait a minute, he has to go back in time to invent escalators? Is that the central problem here? I just like cannot care about this. Escalator, so it's all just stairs to
Yeah.
appropriate the late great Mitch Hedberg.
Imagine a world where there were only stairs, like
And,
there's love.
and elevators.
And elevators, only stairs and elevators. It's just not good enough.
Do we get moving walkways, or do you think that's
right,
under his
right.
purview?
As long as it's purely horizontal. I might be
Yeah.
misremembering. It might be elevators that he invents.
I think it actually might have been elevators. And
Okay,
so maybe
I'll-
we would have had only escalators.
Okay. And from a disability access point, I do agree with the
Mm.
importance of elevators.
Yeah, that's actually what the movie was about to me. I was pretty focused on that storyline.
Mhm.
So I can see why you maybe didn't want to watch Kate and Leopold for this episode. But what do you like about Pretty Woman as a movie?
What do I like about it?
Yeah, like what do you think is like the most enjoyable aspect of Pretty Woman?
Yeah, like what made you game to talk about it for
Yes.
probably far too long with the two of us?
I think that it's exactly, the chemistry is so good with Julia Roberts and Richard Gere, first of all. They are like really in their primes as like movie stars and they're just like doing they're really cooking. They're in the lab, they're getting it done. And I just think there's so many great moments in this movie, right? That it's like it is a really it's like very Shawshankable. Like it's the kind of movie you watch on TV and you like get sucked in for an hour because there are you're just like, oh, I love this scene and I love this scene.
Yeah, that's
That's
so
so
true. It's
real.
a great just like dip in on cable watch. And when you watch a lot of modern rom-coms, they're just not as jam-packed with iconic scenes. And I think that's something that people should be paying more attention to when they're
Yeah.
putting together a romantic comedy.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally you want like punchy writing,
Mhm.
some chemistry, and some actual comedy in a rom-com. And it seems like we've lost our way on basically all of those fronts.
Yeah, I think the movie star chemistry, obviously, and the two central performances are like so iconic within the genre, especially that you're just like, oh, this is like a prototype rom-com that people kind of like take bits and pieces of for decades now. But Yeah, and I think there are like jokes that really play too, which I always like. I like when the
We
jokes aren't just
will
like
we will get there, and
someone's
there
cat
are good
farts or
jokes.
whatever.
Or just something that's billed as a rom-com, but there's actually no jokes.
Right.
And
Right.
you're
It's
like,
just
Yeah.
oh, I
not
thought
dramatic.
it was this a comedy? No? Oh, okay. Cool. So let's talk a little bit about the background of Pretty Woman, who made it when it was first released on March 23rd, 1990. And of course, as you said, Josh, the movie stars Richard Gere as corporate raider Edward, who hires a sex worker named Vivian, played by Julia Roberts, to be his date at work functions for the week. It was directed by the legendary Gary Marshall,
Mhm.
a director. He's like the biggest multi-hyphenate director, actor, producer, screenwriter. He did it all. And he also directed movies like Beaches, The Other Sister, Hocus Pocus. I mean, come on. Runaway Bride, which is just a movie for fans of Pretty Woman, and The Princess Diaries.
That is quite a run. Wow. Seeing that all written.
Yeah,
Not bad.
what a resume.
I know.
Yeah. The screenplay was written by J.F. Lawton, and this is like his biggest credit.
By
So,
far.
Not quite as much of a legendary run when you look at it written out, but that's,
But
I mean, it's a big
honestly,
one.
if you're like, my legacy is Pretty Woman, I still think that puts you leaps and bounds above almost anyone.
Yeah.
So
I mean, my impression of screenwriters is that a lot of the time you just never have a credit because you're just selling scripts all the time that never get
Selling
made.
You're
stuff
just
that
doing
doesn't get
unpaid
made.
labor.
Yeah.
Or you're selling stuff that doesn't get made, or developing, or rewrite passes on stuff that, things that your name doesn't always appear in the credits, even when you worked on something, or you
Right.
get paid and have a career that is more stuff that doesn't like fully come to fruition.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
So J.F. Lawton, look, he did it. He did
it.
something.
Yeah.
The original screenplay was titled 3000 for the number of dollars that the Julia Roberts character is paid. And it was like far grittier and far darker. It was kind of a cautionary tale about sex work and drug addiction. It was decidedly not a romantic comedy. And yet, many of the beats of his original screenplay stayed in the movie, like the scene at the opera, shopping on Rodeo Drive, a contentious dinner with Edward and the man whose company he's trying to destroy. So it's interesting that they kept a lot of the DNA of that original screenplay, but just basically completely changed the tone and, of course, the ending and made it a happy ending.
And there are a couple of like really kind of darker moments that are not surprising, but like, I think Gary Marshall kind of corrals it all into the tone of the full movie, but there's like some stuff that's like pretty bleak that is kind of happens and then goes away.
Right.
Yeah.
You like see that was always there, and you could imagine a version of the movie where like that was at the center. And
Yeah.
instead it's on the periphery.
In a way, it makes more sense for this movie to not have a happy ending. You could even envision it being a movie like The Graduate, which isn't like incredibly dark and gritty, but is sort of like has a bleak ending.
I
despite
love the
finding a
ending
way
of the
to get it.
That's like one of
Oh,
my.
me too.
I think it
But
kind of
it's-
sells the whole movie for me. I love it.
I mean, it's an amazing ending, but it's not like a rom-com ending,
No,
right? You're
for
sort of
sure.
like, what the fuck are they doing? And so I think that that's part of what makes this movie a bit iconic, though, is that it doesn't feel like your average rom-com. It feels different. Your brain is trying to like fit it into the mold it's being put into. But in a way, it makes a lot more sense for it to be a movie that ends kind of tragically.
Yeah. Well, it's also I don't know if we'll get to this later, but it's based kind of like loosely on Pygmalion, right? As
yes.
is My Fair Lady. And
Yes.
they revived My Fair Lady on Broadway, like, I don't know, 5 years ago. I have no sense of time. But my wife Maris and I saw it on Broadway starring Laura Benanti, who's great. And they changed the ending. I don't even think they changed the dialogue, but like Eliza Doolittle, like what's his name? Henry Higgins, like, is begging her to stay. And then she doesn't even have any additional dialogue. She just leaves instead of like running to his arms, and it changes the whole tone of the thing, which I found to be so interesting.
Yeah, it
Oh,
is. That is
yeah.
fascinating. And yes, you're right. This is loosely based on Pygmalion. So a handful of different actors actually were considered for the roles of Edward and Vivian, which is hard for me to even imagine because like Richard Gere and Julie Roberts, it just feels like they had to play these roles.
Yeah.
But Denzel Washington, Kevin Kline, Al Pacino, John Travolta, Christopher Reeve. These are all names that were thrown
Wow.
out for Edward. And Michelle Pfeiffer, Molly Ringwald, Meg Ryan, Winona Ryder, Daryl Hannah, and Diane Lane were all considered for Vivian. So I feel like the
Wow.
dark version of this movie is like Michelle Pfeiffer and Al Pacino.
Yeah, I am struggling to wrap my mind around that.
I will tell you though, like this movie with Denzel Washington and Winona Ryder as the leads, I'm like, I'd watch it. I'd give it a shot.
I mean,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
for sure. For
Oh,
sure.
yeah. But they eventually landed on Richard Gere for Edward, of course, and he was a big star already. He had just he had this, this run in cinema already, American Gigolo, 1980. He played a sex worker, so there's a little bit of like a playing on his past roles in that selection. He was also star of An Officer and a Gentleman in 1982. It had been a minute since he had like a big hit, but he was sort of like a really well-known face in a movie like this.
And then, of course, Julia Roberts was known, but not what she would become. She was a rising star. She was very much not Disney's first choice for this role. She had broken out in Mystic Pizza in 1988 and then Steel Magnolias in 1989. So, like, Steel Magnolias hadn't even come out yet when she was auditioning. But it was really Pretty Woman that solidified her status as, like, a movie star, a rom-com heroine, like one of the, I think, 5 women that I think about when you tell me, like, picture a movie star.
Yeah.
And Pretty Woman did really, really well at the box office. The film grossed $463.4 million worldwide, and at the time of its release, it was the 5th highest grossing film of all time worldwide.
Wow.
I know.
And it's
wild.
rated R or no? Or PG?
It is
Yeah.
rated R.
Which is tough. It's like, I know that's sometimes a tough sell, especially with like a comedy where horror movies, I think people are more likely to like flock to an R-rated one.
Yeah. No, that is like a huge challenge. And almost no rom-coms are rated R.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is different. It's not like other rom-coms. It's for grown-ups. So reviews of the movie were actually quite mixed. Some things were consistent. Almost every critic, they are critics and they know their references. And so they did all note the ways in which the movie takes cues from Pygmalion as well as Cinderella. And everyone really agreed that Julia Roberts and Richard Gere were incredible. Like, so whatever the flaws of the movie, the star power is unimpeachable. Several critics, including Janet Maslin in the New York Times, kind of called out how the movie is really kind of about money and shopping.
Mhm.
Like, I think she says that the movie's true raison d'etre is conspicuous consumption, which, yeah, it's also, and it's like if you're
Nailed it,
pure at
Janet.
heart, you will get to do conspicuous consumption.
Mhm.
Like,
As
that's the
a little
moral.
treat.
But she also wrote that despite this quintessentially late 80s outlook, and despite a covetousness and underlying misogyny, Pretty Woman manages to be giddy, lighthearted escapism much of the time.
Richard Corliss described Pretty Woman in Time magazine as old-fashioned assembly line movie making without the old panache, with mechanical titillation and predictable twists. So he did not like it. But our guy, Roger Ebert, our fave, was unsurprisingly, because he has great reverence for rom-coms, was more charitable. And he called Pretty Woman the sweetest and most open-hearted love fable since The Princess Bride. So you really had these like 2 polar opposite interpretations of the movie.
To me, the biggest problems with the movie were like problems in the DNA of the source material, right? Where it's like
Yes.
always going to be a movie that is about like a man teaching a woman from like a like a disadvantaged economic status about like the finer things in life and like elevating her that way, and then she teaches him to be in love with her.
Correct.
Right.
Like you really can't get around some of that baked in misogyny, which is I really agreed with Janet Maslin's review where it's like, yes, there are these flaws. There are these things that maybe don't quite align with our values. And yet there is like this deliciousness in the movie.
Right. I sort of do agree that there is mechanical titillation and predictable twists, but there is panache. Like the whole movie runs on panache.
That's
and if
right.
it didn't have panache, it wouldn't have worked at all.
Right. The panache is
Right.
the best part.
Right. The panache is why we like it. But if you're not appreciating Julia Roberts, just
That's
like
the thing. I loved Peter Travers' review for Rolling Stone. I usually don't include this many review quotes in our background, but I just thought that they were so interesting. He wrote, "Years from now, Hollywood historians may try to pinpoint the precise moment when Julia Roberts became a star. It's here, about 15 minutes into this silly, shallow comedy, when she's soaking in a tub in a posh hotel, radio earphones on, harmonizing off-key with Prince. The Roberts smile, full-lipped, a mile wide and gleaming, is the closest thing the movies have yet to come to capturing sunshine. Such dazzle should not be taken lightly." I got chills. Like this, it's so true. That is when she became a movie star. And she still, like for us, certainly for our generation, she still is this.
Yeah. Yeah, that it's great to see some critical writing that like really captures something that feels so true. The review also closes with, "Marshall has fashioned a venal fairy tale for the Trump era. You're likely to have a fun night at the movies with Pretty Woman, but you'll hate yourself in the morning." The
Interesting.
Trump reference is going to come back. There's a lot of Trump in Pretty Woman, not him specifically, but like the
His
Trump
essence and the Trump
essence.
brand.
The type of
Yeah.
guy that Trump represented, and his brand was really prominent in the culture at the time, just as it is now. Although obviously many things have happened.
Exactly.
Yeah,
the
I
same.
would like when we were researching for this episode, I kept texting Claire and being like, why is he everywhere?
Yeah,
I went back in time and he's still here.
he's
so
still here.
present.
You have to go back much further to
Yeah.
escape him.
Uh,
Julia Roberts did win a Golden Globe for her role as Vivian. She was nominated for an Academy Award. Richard Gere and Hector Elizondo were also both nominated for Golden Globes, and J.F. Lawton was nominated for a Writers Guild Award for the screenplay. So yeah, they got their flowers. And on that note, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to get into the plot of Pretty Woman.
and we are back, and it's time to get into the meat of this movie. Claire, will you shepherd us through our recap?
I will do my best. I just want to warn you guys, I really had a hard time cutting this plot summary down. It's not a summary. It's kind of a transcript of the movie because
There's
it's
too many good
so
lines.
Good. There's just so much. So first we meet Edward Lewis, of course, played by Richard Gere, at a party in Los Angeles. But before we even meet him, the first words we hear are from a magician who is doing close-up magic for some guests at the party. And he's saying, no matter what they say, it's all about money. And just kind of
There you
using
go.
his cards to show how moving money around to make more money kind of works.
I love a movie that starts with like an extremely on the nose metaphor for the rest of the movie. You're just like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
It's on.
Yeah.
It's
You
kind
want
of
to know
like-
what this movie's about? Money.
It's kind of like when they say the title of the TV show or the movie in the TV show or the movie, and you're like, yeah, that is what it's called. Thank you.
We're all living in
Meanwhile,
paradise.
Edward is.
I mean, what a pilot.
incredible.
Meanwhile, Edward is upstairs getting dumped over the phone by his girlfriend, Jessica, who's honestly such a huge bitch. She doesn't want to just come out here and be at his beck and call all week because he really needs a date to all of his mergers and acquisitions, social gatherings.
I didn't realize there were so many parties involved in corporate rating. I'm learning so much about finance.
And she
Yeah,
and
you
it's
always
like
have to have a date.
He can't even stay merged with his own girlfriend, so this does not bode well.
That's why
So
you need to
true.
bring a date. They're like, how can I merge with someone who isn't merged with a wife or serious girlfriend who is at his side?
This guy's just a freestanding. He's a wild card.
He could do anything.
But I think it's so smart that she dumps him. Like, I think that's such a smart piece of this movie where it's not like he's like, so long, toots. I got business to do, babe. She recognizes like, oh, you aren't treating me like a partner in our lives, and I'm gonna go. So he's not like mistreating her. He's not jerking her. She's like, oh, this has run its course.
Yeah, she's like,
Yeah.
I'll be moving out. Goodbye, Edward.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
It takes like 5 seconds. I think this is such an interesting setup also because throughout the movie now, Vivian is going to be positively contrasted with the women who are unwilling to be at his beck and call. Like, she is the one who is tender and emotionally available to him through being at his beck and call whenever
She's also
he
the only
needs.
one being compensated for her labor.
Mhm.
I'm sure Jessica was allowed to shop on his line of credit at Bloomingdale's. Edward leaves the party, now single, and he steals his lawyer's sports car, a Lotus Esprit, on the way out, despite barely knowing how to drive a stick shift.
Again,
My personal nightmare.
such a funny detail about the guy where it's like this guy is so confident that he takes off in a car he can't drive to a place he doesn't know how to get to, immediately goes the wrong way. So like this guy is like he has everything at his fingertips and he's constantly making these choices that are like antithetical to his own abilities.
No, I love that read on Edward.
No, he's the ultimate like man who doesn't need to ask for directions because he's about to figure it out. And we wanted to talk a little bit about Edward as a character before we meet Vivian, because Gary Marshall has actually said that he was meant to be modeled somewhat on Trump. That was like explicit. And so when we notice these parallels, that is intentional. And he said that like the character of Edward Lewis presented them a lot of problems when they were trying to write the movie and fix up the script. And he said, quote, only Barbara Benedek, the sole woman writer in the group, got the voice of Edward down by creating a Donald Trump style executive with a vulnerable side.
They're like, imagine Trump, but smart and nice.
And yeah, with a vulnerable side that
this-
Trump does not have.
This is I'm gonna quote or like crib directly from my wife, who is so brilliant about thinking about stuff like this, where
Maris is brilliant.
yes, she's incredible. And she says her big thing about movies like this or like 50 Shades of Grey is that the fantasy that we're sold, as much as like it's the sexual chemistry and tension or the access to this kind of conspicuous consumption, it's the fantasy that these guys who have built their lives on just like financial acquisition at all cost and leaving other people in ruins are secretly tender and capable of love.
Yes. Nailed it. You're like, in real life, Donald Trump, as we all know, is abjectly terrifying
Yeah.
and
I think
devoid of empathy.
Yeah.
But Edward is a work of fiction, and that's why he works.
Yeah. And it's kind of like an exaggeration of what I think, and we've discussed this before, like one of the fundamental fantasies of the romantic comedy and why it's marketed to women is what if deep down men noticed you the way you noticed them? What if they cared for you the way you cared for them? What if they were really good partners and you just hadn't like found the person who was going to see that in you yet? And even more so when it's also like, and it's a billionaire who actually is a really good guy, despite all of the corporate rating and acquisition.
I felt the only thing of 1991 that like really took me out of it was like trying to scale the money. Right?
Yeah.
Like Jason Alexander's character, the lawyer Phil Stuckey at one point goes, "You're the only millionaire that I know who blah blah blah," and I'm like, "How many
Yeah,
millions are we talking?"
Because like there aren't just a bunch of billionaires running around at this point. Like this man is
Yeah.
not a billionaire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just a regular old millionaire, and everyone was very impressed by that in 1990.
Yeah, being a millionaire now is just like you could be just like a doctor. Like it's basically
It's
everyone's a
true.
millionaire as far as I can tell.
Or
Not
has
me,
no money
but
at all.
everyone
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, exactly. So apparently
but-
$1 million in 1990 is like $2.5 million today.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
he probably had a significant number of millions.
Yeah.
He had many millions. He was probably a multimillionaire. And there are some like pretty obvious parallels with Donald Trump in how they constructed his character, like a teetotaler,
hmm
despises drugs, born to wealth, silver spoon in his mouth, never drove, just took a limo, you know, maybe gets inside a car and is like, whoa, everything's computer. Like, I've never seen anything like this before because I'm always sitting in the back. He has a strained relationship with his father, in whose footsteps he is following. He's a larger than life figure. He's known for dating beautiful women, but not necessarily being like a devoted partner and family man. So there are like some clear parallels, but he has this really soft, tender heart that just yearns to be loved.
He's in therapy.
He's in therapy. Imagine if Donald Trump just went to therapy.
The
last
therapist
decade
would
of
die
American
by
politics.
suicide.
Yeah, that's the therapist would be like, there is nothing we can do
Yeah.
for this one.
Mhm.
Yeah. You know, that's honestly true. Probably we would all be much, much worse off if he had learned about therapeutic lingo.
Because he would just be like, Zelensky's gaslighting us right now.
Exactly.
It's time for me to draw a healthy boundary.
That's right. I'm going to draw a healthy boundary which engulfs Canada into the U.S.
The healthiest boundary of all.
Mhm.
Then we meet Vivian Ward, played by Julia Roberts, a sex worker who works the street on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, from Bob Hope to Ella Fitzgerald
Mhm.
specifically. And the first we see of her is her shapely butt and crotch in lace undies. And she's kind of rolling over in bed. And then she puts on her iconic dress, makeup, black boots fixed up with Sharpie. That's a detail that always sticks in my mind. And in fact, that is how I learned to fix up my black boots with Sharpie when I first moved to New York, and a blonde bob wig. This opening scene, I think, is so fascinating in how explicitly it's just like, yep, she's a body for sex. The most important thing you need to see is her sex part.
Mhm.
It's right there. It's sexy. It's in lace. And it really frames her up from this very like objectifying lens that they are then, I guess, going to try to more or less successfully deconstruct a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so much when a movie does something like this, it's like especially a movie like of this kind of tone and quality, you're like, how much of this is like, this is how people are looking at her, but she's more than that, and how much of it is just like, we're actually just kind of doing the thing sometimes.
And I think
Right.
movies like this like to do both, right? They're like, well, if you interpret it as sort of us putting like a critical spin on the thing, then that's great. And also, if you just want to see a sexy Julia Roberts crotch, also great for us. We
Yeah.
win either way. And yeah, it's definitely like they are not walking away from objectifying this woman. They're like, we are trying to sell tickets to movies. She's a hottie. Here's her body.
Yeah. They're definitely having it both ways a little bit.
Yeah.
She passes a police investigation as she walks outside that is being photographed by tourists. And we learn that a sex worker she knows a little bit has been found dead in a dumpster.
Which is so bleak.
It's so dark
Yeah.
and it is nodded to basically immediately. I was very struck by that like immediate violence that is shown to us, but with this very light touch.
It's like a little weird, right? Like it's that kind of
Yeah.
trope that I think has smarter writers and a lot of women and people who have worked in sex work and are writers as well have said like, yeah, just like the casual violence on screen and like referenced on screen towards sex workers as like context and like tone setting is like it is pretty jarring in a movie where you're going to be like, oh, and then she goes to the Louis Vuitton store.
Right.
Right. Yeah, it's like a literal body as set
Mhm.
dressing. Yeah, it's unsettling and and they really kind of glaze right over it. You know, she goes and like chats briefly to her roommate about it. Her roommate Kit is played by Laura San Giacomo. And yeah, it never really comes up again. And I think maybe generously it's supposed to kind of directly kind of reference that her profession is risky and that she has reason to like want to pursue another path. But like yeah, it's just like an easy gross trope to throw in there.
We do, however, get Hank Azaria as the police detective in
Mhm.
his first ever film role. So
They just didn't want to cut Hank. They were like,
they're like, what
I
a
know.
talent.
He-
It's
Maybe
a
he should be
nasty
cast in
stereotype,
something
but
else.
Right, he's huge coming off of season 2 of The Simpsons. His agents were like, if Azaria gets cut, you never get Roberts again.
And just to build on this kind of like stereotypical image of the lifestyle and you know the work that Vivian is living, her roommate has stolen the rent money from the toilet tank to buy drugs. So, you know, she is also like in this setting where she's around sex workers who are being killed and also who are just like so irresponsible, so like chasing, you know, a high that they're kind of stuck in this lifestyle and can't even envision something outside of it. And that's like very much what Kit represents is someone who's just like, what else would I ever want? Like I can steal your rent money and get drugs and that's life. Like that's the life that I choose. So it's a very like kind of stereotypical and unflattering depiction that's again played as comedy.
And we're immediately told that Vivian is not like other sex workers.
She's
Right?
different.
She's different. And what I found interesting in researching the history of the screenplay is that a lot of the characteristics that Vivian had in the original are sort of just passed over to Kit, including like substance abuse.
Interesting.
That is so interesting. It's very like it reminds me of like doppelganger theory or like the ways that like or like the dark self, like the shadow self, the ways that we have to like that we pass off the traits that we don't want to identify with to the other, like another person or a twin that we can like distance ourselves from. Like it's very psychologically like resonant that they did that.
Yes.
They were like, the viewer's not going to want to identify with the heroine who
And it's
has those traits.
It's so interesting watching this in the wake of, a few months after Honora has won Best Picture in 2025. And I think that character is more of like a dick, but also like, I don't, she does drugs and like parties. And I don't think we're supposed to go like, ugh, I hope bad things happen to her morally because of this. But like she
Right.
doesn't reap the rewards of kind of like getting to splash around in the pool of late capitalism in the way that Vivian ultimately does.
Right. She's given
She's
the
knocked
darker
down a
ending,
peg
sort of the
again.
punishment. Yeah. For the sex worker to get the reward, she has to be pure and different from the
Mhm.
other ones. And Vivian is like also like an organizer. She and Kit have rules that it seems like Vivian is very intense about, like no pimps.
Mhm.
And their motto is like we say who, we say when, we say how much, which I love that.
Me too.
They should get to decide that.
And what do they say when they say goodbye to each other? Is it like take care of yourself? Like it's like
Yeah,
They
take
say,
care of you.
take care of you.
yeah, take care of you, which is like such a specific, like it's different than take care, obviously. I think that's really
Yeah.
sweet.
No, they are
I
like
actually love their relationship.
yeah. And like Kit has this sort of messier side, but she is the person who has a longer history in the field of sex work and kind of brought Vivian in and is kind of shepherding her. So there is like a give and take to their caretaking. But they're out, working the block when the Lotus Esprit screeches to a stop at the corner and Vivian tries to pick him up. But Edward just wants directions. So she's like, I'm going to charge you for directions.
I love
And
an entrepreneur.
so does he. And he ends up paying her $20 to personally guide him to his location. The
This is
world
the
before Google
horror.
Maps.
And she knows a lot about cars.
Yeah.
She knows everything. She knows everything about cars because the boys in the metal shop back home.
Yeah. He couldn't have picked up a better person. She can not only show him where to go, she can show him how to drive the car. Like, this is what technology has taken from us. Like, it used to be you didn't know where you were going. You had to stop and pick up a person who could teach you all about life and driving stick shift.
Yeah, this movie would have been called Pretty Siri if they made it this year.
It's just the movie Her, but it's all set in a car. So Vivian kind of comes in and out of her persona, like her sex worker persona during this drive. She's like excited about the car and she's new to the field of sex work, as we've said, but she's trying to sell the fantasies. He's like, what's your name? And she's like, what do you want my name to be? But she very
And he's like,
quickly
oh, now I
ends
have
up sharing.
to do improv.
Yeah. He's like, I don't care. Like, I just want to know how to get to
The Beverly Wilshire.
Yeah, the Beverly Wilshire. And so she very quickly ends up sharing her real name, her real hometown, her real shoe size, her real interest in muscle cars. Like, she is not approaching this game kind of the way that you are supposed to. She is giving of her real self very quickly.
First and last
And
name
this
to
intrigues
everyone.
him. She goes for it. I'm like, has Kit taught you nothing? Like,
Yeah,
this
be a little
doesn't
bit more
seem-
discerning, Viv.
Mhm.
Viv could see this guy had potential. And I think this is like supposed to be another indication that she doesn't really fit. Like, it doesn't come naturally to her to play the coquette. She very quickly starts like telling him her real name and being like, I love muscle cars. I used to hang out with the guys, which is just like not really the mystique that she is maybe supposed to be presenting during this encounter. So at the hotel, Edward ends up asking her to come in, but he makes her put on his overcoat because it's not the kind of establishment that rents rooms by the hour. She is wearing her iconic dress, which I don't think we discussed, which is like the
No.
white tank top
Color
with the
block.
ring.
Cutouts.
Like a big loop kind of securing it in the front, like a big hoop.
Yeah, it's
buckle.
the
Yeah,
ring. Yeah,
yeah.
a metal ring. We'll call it a loop from now on.
No,
I
Rick,
prefer
you're
that.
probably right. You're probably-
Josh Gondelman,
Her ring dress? Is that
expert
how
on
it is?
women's fashion. I feel like we could see a dress like this just on like an episode of Love Island or Too Hot to Handle.
It's not quite skin tight enough.
That's true. It's actually like a little too demure
It's
for
too chaste for today. But yeah, no, the sex appeal, the look, it still resonates today. And it resonates so much with him that he thinks it's going to resonate a little too much with the staff and guests at the Beverly Wilshire.
And frankly,
So-
it does
Yeah.
because everyone's heads turn because he does give her his coat, but she doesn't tie it. It's like a trench.
Yep.
So it's just, it's just open.
And everyone at the hotel is giving her like a and twins, kind of like eyeballing up and down.
Yeah, especially like older white ladies who are
Yeah,
like
well-
clutching their pearls.
Well, the older white men are gazing at her lasciviously, and the older white women that they are married to are gazing at them censoriously. Like, this is like the first like really palpable moment where we see the like Madonna whore dichotomy kind of playing out on camera, where the prudish women are looking down upon
Mhm.
Vivian and shaming her because of her sex appeal, because they're just like so uptight and judgmental and withholding. But also her like sexiness is sort of like low class and crude. So both of the types of women are coming across sort of badly.
Shocker,
In this
women.
dichotomy.
You get to lose either way.
Yeah, if you're a slut, men want you, and you're pretty and young and free. And if you're like the Madonna, then you're ugly and frumpy.
But at least you
you're
have some financial
respectable,
resources.
and you have money.
And this scene was the basis of your 1992 relationship guide, Claire. Is that right? Called Men Are Lascivious, Women Are Censorious.
I'm simply always saying
Flying off
that.
the bookshelves.
My TED Talk.
Just
Yeah.
a catchphrase that rolls off the tongue.
Yeah. So
That's
smooth.
what we're known for, is catchphrases that roll off the tongue on this podcast. But like, Vivian is kind of at the beginning point of her Pygmalion journey, right? Like, at this moment, she's not really good at being a sex worker, but she's also not really good at being like the kind of wealthy or wealth adjacent classy lady who's at a hotel like this. And she is going to be like broken down, made ashamed of her work, made ashamed of her sex appeal, and like shown another way and another space that she could inhabit if she changes everything about herself. And so they head up to the penthouse suite. Both of them seem a little unsure of how to proceed because, like, he was in a relationship like 2 hours ago and clearly, like, didn't intend to pick up a sex worker. And she, again, doesn't seem very experienced or good at it yet.
Right. She especially, it
Um,
seems like, doesn't know how to, like, she doesn't know how to upsell.
Right. She knows how to upsell directions, right?
But
once
she's
it
kind of
comes
like,
to,
okay, can we just do the thing? She's like a get in, get
Right.
out. I did my work, collect my dollars. And Edward is trying to hang. He's like, I don't just want a sex worker. I want a friend. I don't have enough friends.
I mean,
This is the eternal
Right.
problem of straight
not trying to
men.
hang out. Right. The male loneliness epidemic strikes early
Yeah.
and strikes often. Because he's not hanging out with Phil Stuckey. That guy's a drip.
No, that guy's not a good vibe.
Terrible vibe. And Jason Alexander, one of our great balds, he's so loathsome in this movie.
Oh, yeah. Also
Oh, yeah.
obsessed by the fact that this is coming like right on the heels of him being cast as George Costanza. So like Phil Stuckey and George Costanza are being like created in tandem.
Yeah.
yeah. He was just embarking on a great run of playing like a loathsome
Loathsome
comic
man.
figure.
But like different
Yeah.
And
brands.
different brands. Yeah, Stuckey is successful, so there's that. No, this scene is incredible. Vivian takes charge. She's like, you have to pay up front. And then she whips out a bunch of condom options, and
I
it's all
love
like by
this.
color. She's like, here are my options: blue, green, red, and orange.
This
like, oh, good. Those
Oh,
are
and the
the
gold
fundamental
coin.
things I care about.
Yeah.
And the gold coin.
The gold.
Yeah.
this
That's the luxury option.
this feels like such a 90s thing. Like, I just remember that being, and maybe it was just because I was young about this stuff for the first time.
No,
But being-
you're completely right, Josh, because actually this is something that was added into the script because Gary Marshall's wife was working as a nurse at the LA Free Clinic at the time. And she was super passionate about contraception, obviously
Sure.
AIDS
Yeah.
epidemic. And so she was like, we gotta put in a scene where she's given him the buffet
And
of
it's,
safety.
I remember like it being such a cultural thing of like, this condom tastes like watermelon. And you're like, what?
yes.
Yeah. They were like, how can we get people to care about safe sex?
And
Flavors?
it's like, if only
Fun colors?
if only condoms had kind of the appeal of those LA Lights sneakers that light up when you walk.
Right. Yeah, it's somewhere between like the LA Light sneakers and like a scratch and sniff sticker. That's where we see condoms.
Yeah, they should be more scented. Like, I should just be able to smell watermelon wafting
That's
around
right.
me.
You would be drawn
during-
to it. You'd be like, I love this
Yeah.
condom. I love everything about it.
So she's just like basically just trying to put a condom on him right
She's
away.
a safety girl.
And he's like, no. Yeah, she's like, gotta make sure that before anything even comes close to happening, there's a rubber on there. And he's like, no, I ordered us some strawberries and champagne, but I don't drink. It's for you. And she's kind of swigging the champagne. She's eating the strawberries, but she's like, what's going on here? I appreciate the seduction scene, but I'm on an hourly rate and I need to move it along. which I thought was an odd way to frame it, because if you're on an hourly rate, wouldn't you want to stretch it out for the night?
I think she's running on the assumption that he has already paid her all he will
Yeah,
pay her.
I think so too. And
Mm,
she's trying to imply like I have other high dollar business appointments waiting for me, which
Right.
I think he
right.
rightfully has kind of sussed out that this is not her normal fee.
Okay, so she's saying like, you paid for an hour. I don't want to
You're
Yeah,
be
only
here
tick
all
getting an
tock,
night.
buddy.
hour.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And he's like, what would I need to pay for the whole night? And she's like, you couldn't afford it. Sweetie, you're in the penthouse suite of a luxury hotel in Beverly
He can
Hills.
And then
afford
she
it.
He can
immediately
afford it.
lowballs herself, right? He goes, "Try me." She
I
says
know.
$300.
I was like, 300?
$300.
Vivian, do you know how many hours are in a night? Come on.
He's going to have you eating strawberries until the sun
Mhm.
comes up.
Yeah, you got it like at like bare minimum 500.
Right,
But
even if you're
whatever.
giving him a bulk
Obviously-
hours
Gives him a deal.
discount.
Obviously, he ponies up, and we cut to Vivian sprawled on the carpet watching I Love Lucy, guffawing and eating treats while he works behind her and just like watches her. This was an odd scene to me because it's very reminiscent of like babysitting a small child.
She's
Like as
so girlish in this
Yeah.
sequence especially.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the lack of like refinement, like she is the clay that needs to be
Mhm.
molded, plays as very much like she's a
She's a
child that he's
baby.
Yeah.
watching.
She's a sexy
Mhm.
baby.
She's the sexiest baby. Except she's not a baby, because then abruptly she gets up and comes over and starts undressing them both, so that they can have sex. And she tells him that she doesn't kiss on the mouth, and he says, "Neither do I."
Which good line.
Does he? Wasn't he just in like a long relationship? I'm starting to
Look.
understand why Jessica wanted
Yeah.
to move it along.
He was,
She's like, I've been with you for 3 years and we still haven't kissed on
and
the
he's
mouth.
like, I start with
getting out of
penetration and it
control.
escalates from there.
But we're supposed to understand these are two people who very much resist
Mhm.
intimacy at all costs.
Yes, they don't want to get emotionally involved. The next morning, Edward orders the whole room service menu for Vivian, and she sits on the table because a big part of her character is that she hates sitting on chairs.
She's a
It
quirky
comes
girl.
up over
They
and
give her
over
like
again.
a few ticks that he is always like, or that are always being corrected in her, or refined, and that's one of them. And like the amount of times he's like stop fidgeting throughout the movie is like clearly
Yeah.
it's like in there to seed like, oh, she's doing the thing, and I'm like, I have not noticed once that Julia Roberts, one of the 10 most beautiful people alive, and when this movie is made, is like fiddling with her ring or something or whatever it is.
Yeah, no, not even a little
Yeah.
bit. I'm just staring at her beautiful face and her
No, but-
incredible hair.
Incredible hair.
But again, as someone with a 5-year-old, it is super reminiscent of having
Mhm.
dinner or breakfast with a 5-year-old. You're like, please sit with your butt in your
Mhm.
seat. Please sit with your butt. Why are you on the table? Again, we just talked about this 5 seconds ago. Like, and that is part of she has to have these tics that you correct in order for her to go on a journey. Because he's
Is
educating
this sequence
her.
too where she goes out onto the balcony, right? And that's later. Sorry.
Yeah, but I was thinking of that one as well. Like, again, she's sitting up
Oh.
too high. Like, this will not
Even
stand.
the first time though, where she goes out and she's like, "Oh, it's so nice out here. You can see to the beach," and he's like, "I never go out there. I'm afraid of heights," which is like, I think another one of those characteristic things where he like wants the biggest and best thing, whether or not it's right for him, and. He says,
Yes.
one of my favorite
Mhm.
jokes in the movie is he goes, keep trying to find a penthouse on the first floor, but nothing, no luck so far.
That is an amazing line. And it's very, I'm going to keep bringing it back to this, and I'm so sorry, but it is sort of Trumpy. It's like both the conspicuous consumption of the symbol of status and also the very specific anxiety or phobia, which are both characteristics that
Mhm.
Trump has as well, having these very specific little phobias. And so she's like scarfing the food. He's telling her about himself. He's like, I buy companies, I break them up, and I sell them. And she's like, "Oh, so like stealing cars and selling them for parts." And he's like, "Uh, sort of,
She
not
got his ass.
exactly."
I
Yeah.
mean, show me the lie.
I mean, I
She
guess
seems to
in
nail
theory,
it.
it's like buying a car and selling it for parts,
And she
Sure.
says you don't
But for cheap. Buying a
But for
you
car
don't
for
build
cheap.
anything, you don't make anything.
yeah, you dismantle
Mhm.
things for money.
Yeah. And he's like, oh no. And you can see it. This is the
Yeah.
journey he
We're
goes
like-
on. He needs to realize that his existence is
In
empty.
real life, that guy would be like, "Yeah, it's the greatest thing going."
Or he would
Yeah.
be like, I'm never going
Yeah.
to see you again because you have now insulted my fragile ego.
He is currently looking to buy a $1 billion company. So they did have
But
billions back then.
they were like, "You need all these," and he was like, "I need all these investors in the
Right,
bank."
yeah.
Yeah, he's like, I just don't personally have billions.
I just mean
Yes.
the number a billion
yeah, it was out there.
existed.
It was
They
certainly
had
out
invented
there.
$1 billion by then. A trillion, I
think they
think,
did-
didn't come around until at least
In
the late
86,
90s.
they were just like looking at a big number like ticking up, like what?
They're like, we
comes
got
next?"
it.
One guy's like, "What do we even call this thing, sir?"
That's sort of what I envision when people talk about mining for Bitcoin. So his lawyer wants him to take a date to this dinner he's having with the owner of the company, because his lawyer's like, this is Stucky,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Yes.
he's always like, you get too intense and weird. You're gonna ruin the sale. Take a date, keep it social, keep it light. And obviously, he has a date right there. She's in the tub, soaking in the suds, listening to Prince's Kiss on a
Singing?
Walkman and singing
Yeah.
along.
It's iconic, and we have a clip.
Listen, Edward, I know a lot of nice girls. No, you don't.
I just want your extra time and your kiss.
Besides, I already have one.
If you want to impress me,
You just concentrate on finding out what Morse is up to. I'm on my way.
I don't have to undress me. Yeah, baby. I wanna be your fantasy. Well, maybe you could be mine. You just believe it all up to me. Don't you just love Prince?
More than life itself.
It's so charming. It's so charming. I can't handle it. She's just like, she is pure sunshine in this scene.
Yeah, Peter Travers is right.
Yeah, I mean, it's the fact that she is singing very badly and like just going for it is
I love it.
It's
such a-
important that
a crucial part of
she's
the
not
scene.
singing well, I think, because it's not like she like
Yeah.
called him in with her siren song, right? It's like her unself-conscious charm.
Exactly.
Right.
She's just being herself, and he enjoys it. So he's like, I've got it. I have a date here. Vivian, I have a business proposition for you. Be my date for the week while I close this deal. Be at my beck and call. I will pay you to do it. Vivian asks for $4,000 for the week. He counters with $1,800, and then they meet at $3,000.
And the
And sh-
beck and call, right? He uses that because that's what his Jessica, the ex, had accused him of wanting her to be.
Yes,
And
it's a
so he's like,
callback.
where we are with him right now is he's like, finally, someone who will give me the relationship I want. I tell them what to do and they do it.
He's like, I just have to pay for it? This is
Yeah, I
fucking
have
great.
money.
This is going to work for me.
yeah, I just need to find someone who needs the money and is willing to exchange beck and call for that money. And after they come to this agreement, she tells him she would have stayed for $2,000, and he says he would have paid $4,000. And it's such a romantic moment. Their eyes kind of meet. Just
I was like,
two
I think she
cutthroat
should have gotten
negotiators.
4 then.
Yeah, I know. Like you
Oh,
can
you-
afford it.
Oh, you,
like
you signed the contract already?
I know it sounds like you're saying I should walk
Mhm.
away right now. As he leaves, Vivian smiles sweetly at him and says, "Baby, I'm going to treat you so nice, you're never going to want to let me go." And he turns back and says, $3,000, 6 days, and Vivian, I will let you go. and her face falls because she is already getting caught up in the fantasy.
She's getting down bad. On
Yeah.
that note, we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we're going to get into another deeply iconic scene, Rodeo Drive, and of course, the rest of this movie.
And we are back. So Edward, before he left, gave Vivian money to buy something elegant to wear for their time together. So, of course, she heads to Rodeo Drive in her working girl duds, very excited to shop. Unfortunately, she's not really dressed like someone who normally shops at some of these stores because we are in a time when apparently women with a lot of money wore mostly blazers and
Sweater sets, Claire.
sweater sets,
You don't belong here.
blouses.
You've got
buttoned
no
up to the
shoulder
neck.
pads at all. Get out.
Where are you hiding your shoulder pads in that dress?
I'm seeing straight to your shoulders like you are a common woman of the night.
No man should know the true outline of your arm bones.
I need a woman's shoulders like Optimus Prime, the Transformer.
If you show even like the bottom part of your neck.
Oh yeah, brutal.
Whore.
I want to guess. I want a little mystery. I want to think a woman's chin just sits right on her collarbone.
The clavicle is something you only show once he moves you into his
Yeah,
apartment.
that's for the opera. You save your clavicles for the opera, maybe
She's
the
walking
ballet.
around all opera-necked out on the street.
So she stops in one of these stores full of shoulder pads where the shop workers are eyeing her up and down icily in their shoulder pads. She asks for some help with the clothes, and the saleswomen do not respond very well. They're like, I don't think that will fit you. And she's like, I didn't ask if it would fit. I asked how much it cost. And they're like, I think it's too expensive for you. And Vivian gets pretty pissed. She's like, I have money to spend. And the first shop girl, in an iconic moment, tells her, I don't think we have anything for you. You're obviously in the wrong place. Please leave. This is the setup for the biggest moment of the movie.
Correct.
But Vivian at this moment is demoralized. She leaves without any shoulder pads, still with all of the cash that Edward gave her to just clothe her clavicles to his satisfaction. She wraps her coat around herself to cover up and heads back to the hotel, where she meets her fairy godfather, Barney, the manager of the hotel, who enters her life by trying to keep her out of the hotel because he feels like she looks like a hooker. Like, let's just...
He's like, look, come to my office. I need to explain to you that sex workers are not welcome at the Regent Beverly Wilshire. But Edward is a very special customer. So
But they haven't met.
Yeah.
we'll make an exception.
That's like a weird thing to me. Where like he clearly has not made an impression on Edward because he keeps trying to introduce himself to him
No.
later.
Yeah. But Edward clearly spends like enough money that they're like, even though he's like very
We can't,
rude
like,
to us.
fuck with whatever
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
doing here.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, we like to think of our very special customers as friends. And if they want to bring in sex workers, you know, they're in the penthouse. So that's
Just
what they
as
get to
long
do.
as the sex worker wears
And
shoulder
says
pads.
that they're blood relatives.
Yeah.
That's right, where she's like,
He actually-
I'm his niece.
I think that Barney actually is like, you're his niece, right?
yeah.
Like he's sort of offering, he's coaching her. Like, this
Yep.
is what you should say to put a fig leaf on your stay here. You shouldn't be get like attracting attention. You shouldn't be making it clear that you're like his escort for the week. You should be saying like, oh, of course, I'm Mr. Lewis's niece. I'm visiting him from out of town. And she's like, yes, absolutely. I am his niece. But basically, he's like, you won't be back. Like, you're not going to be pulling more clients at the hotel. You're not going to be meeting someone at the bar and giving him your card. Like, this is the end of the line for you. And then he's like, also, you need to dress more appropriately in shoulder pads. And Vivian is like, I'm trying, but no one will take my money and give me a suitable dress in return. And Barney is here to help because he wants to make sure that his very special friend's very special niece is appropriately outfitted, and he gets her a shopping appointment. So she goes shopping and learns that when she returns that she and Edward will be going to a fancy restaurant. And she completely panics because she doesn't know how to act at fancy
The
restaurants.
phone calls are like one of the cutest scenes, right? He calls the room. She
Yeah.
picks up. He says, never pick up. She says, then why are you calling me?
And then he
And
tests it again.
She stopped answering the phone and she says, then stop calling me. And they both have these kind of like sweet grins, like, we're doing bits.
Also, you have to imagine that they are like shooting each half of this scene completely alone. You're like, they are selling that chemistry
Yeah.
from nothing. That is the mark of a good actor.
They're flirting with a brick wall. Yeah, those scenes are adorable. And that's how we get a lot of the transitions as well. Like she learns where she'll be going next. Like she learns what her next challenge will be. And she learns here that she's going to need to know how to use salad forks.
And she's like, Barney, I don't know what to do. I need help. And Gary Marshall has said that he really always saw Pretty Woman as a modern fairy tale. And he told Vanity Fair in 2015, my vision was a combination of fairy tales. Julia Roberts was Rapunzel, Richard Gere was Prince Charming, and Hector Elizondo was the fairy godmother. It didn't seem like a vision everybody would have, but I did. So very explicitly, Barney is there to make Vivian's wishes come true and also turn her into a respectable lady like Henry Higgins.
It's like if Mrs.
does
Potts
to Eliza
the
Doolittle.
teapot
He's
taught her how to use the other silver.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how they like combine Henry Higgins and the fairy godmother figure into one. Like, what an incredible gift that he's like selflessly, giving her to live her dreams. But in fact, he's actually just like trying to make her
Class her
presentable by
up.
changing her like class
And
presentation.
it's
basically,
also, I
yeah.
think, like very thoughtful, smart writing for keeping Edward likable, to not have him be like, look, lady, you got to know what fork is what by the time I get there. You know what I mean? Like, he's not
That's such a
bossing
good
her
point. They
around.
kind of have to outsource some of
so
that.
they give him these like little things of like, stop fidgeting, but he's never like, and he tells her how to dress, but I don't think he's like I don't think he's
But
like a
aside from
sweet,
that-
warm guy, but they're not making him do all this work of like, you're bad at being around people and you need to be good in, you know what I mean? In like,
Right.
they offload some of that onto this other guy who's doing it in a more generous way of like, I'm helping you pass in these situations.
Right? Like you're panicking.
Yes.
You're panicking
Yeah.
and you're nervous. So let me take time to
Yep.
help you. It
Yeah.
softens it.
Yeah, that is one of the like big creep factors of Pygmalion and of
Totally.
like My Fair
And I think
Lady.
it like kind of,
that like he's shaping her
Yes.
into the perfect
and
woman like for him.
it takes you out of like, oh, they're vibing, they're getting along. The more he's like, you have to be like this.
Right. Because what they want to do is kind of show her like the new her being carved out of the old, like lower class presenting, like common sex worker into this more like polished, setting appropriate, like
Yeah.
higher class presentation person. And then they want Edward to be sort of responding to like her soul that is being revealed as those like outer trappings are chiseled away. And there is some effectiveness to that. I think also that like if Edward had the time to like mold her into the perfect woman, then who's doing all the corporate rating? Like that they're also
That's
kind
right.
of like
True.
perpetuating
That's right.
this image of him as
Yeah,
like so important and like he's really out there
Henry
doing
Higgins
business.
really,
Yeah, he has to
he
do
really
business.
he was like a tenure track professor or
Had
whatever.
time on his
So
hands.
he's like, oh, I'm on sabbatical
Yeah, what
to
was he doing?
psychologically destroy a woman.
That's what sabbatical is for. So that you can crush a woman's psyche until she's your perfect wife. So Edward is at work doing his corporate rating, where he learns that Morse Industries might get more expensive because it's about to secure a $350 million contract to buy Navy destroyers.
But never
would
fear.
really-
Edward is prepared to do some real
Yeah.
corruption in the Senate.
Yeah.
He's like, it's fine. We know a senator on the appropriations committee. It's fine. We just block that right up. All good.
Yeah. It's nice to know that even back then you could do this kind of political corruption and not make the hero who is doing that corruption unredeemable in the eyes of the
Right.
American viewing public. Like, we were
Yep.
screwed all the way back in
Yep.
like 1990. So when he returns, Vivian is waiting in the lounge for her makeover reveal, the first look. And when he walks in, at first he doesn't see her at all because she's had such a glow up that she's unrecognizable. Like, he's looking around like,
Which
where's the
one of
cheap
these
looking
women is
whore
Julia
in here?
Roberts?
I know, it's ridiculous.
She
Like, she
blends
looks the
right
same.
in.
But she is now looking completely differently because she's wearing a mini dress with no side cutouts at all. And her hair has been brushed in a different direction. So
She's fancy now.
yeah, she doesn't even look like herself. They have a fancy French dinner with Jim Morse and his grandson. And Vivian has learned to say, please do so, instead of yeah. But unfortunately, they did not have time to learn how to use escargot tongs.
But it
which
makes her all
results-
the more charming. Slippery
Yeah,
little
and the
suckers.
old guy's like, I never know how to
Great
use
line.
butter either.
He's a real self-made American
Yeah.
millionaire.
Naval
Like,
destroyer construction. And you'd be like,
Yeah, a really
He's like-
good man is, I think,
He-
what you're looking
listen,
for.
he worked his way up from a humble background to become
he used to just
a
sell
Navy
guns to
ship
children.
destroyer builder. That's where they start you
The
out.
American
you have to sell
dream.
guns to children, and then you get to build Navy destroyers. But they don't. The Morses basically don't want Edward to buy the company. They're being like targeted by this corporate raid, but they would rather maintain their independence. And Morse is like, this was 40 years of my work, and I don't want it to become your garage sale. And Edward is like, look, you're not going to have the financial leverage to stop it because your Navy contract, it's going to be buried in appropriations. And then he kind of, does his evil guy thing, and the Morses storm out furious. And if I'm Vivian at this point, I'm kind of like, I feel like if I stay with this guy, at one point I'm going to be called upon to testify in front of the Senate.
And that's another
is looking-
$1,500.
Yeah.
We're looking at
You
a
gotta
real
have the
like
bonus for possible
And she's going to have to get a new
criminal
outfit.
implications.
yeah. Oh, it's
Yeah.
gonna
What do you wear to testify in front of the,
The
Senate?
biggest shoulder pads the
Shoulder
world has ever
pads.
seen. You could land a plane on those shoulder pads.
shoulder pads as broad as a naval destroyer. So after dinner, they head back and sit on the hotel balcony in the penthouse suite. This is the balcony scene. She sits on the balcony wall and he freaks out because he is afraid of heights. I'm also afraid of heights. And I was like, why are you sitting on the wall of the balcony? I don't want to watch your body get scraped off the pavement.
Yeah,
Like,
those cops are questioning him first.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
As we just learned, though, at the beginning, unfortunately, sex worker deaths in
Oh,
Los Angeles
God.
don't seem to be taken all that seriously.
you're right. He shouldn't be worried at all.
Yeah,
I
it's
feel like
fine.
they're not
He'll be
gonna want to
fine.
bother me about
He'll
this.
be fine. That's what I'm worried about.
No, if she was his wife. That's
his
another
future.
story.
She's ruining his future by falling off this balcony.
That's why she has to make sure he has to make sure before he marries her that she's not sitting on balconies.
Exactly.
It's like, I don't want to get
She has to
questioned by the police
learn.
if something happens. They end up kind of bonding about business because she has now seen him doing his business jujitsu, and he's seen her doing her business jujitsu by, charging him $20 for directions. And he's like, business isn't personal. I just try to keep emotions out of it. And she's like, yeah, exactly. That's why I don't kiss on the mouth. It's too personal. When I'm with a guy, I'm like a robot. I just do it. And then she's like, I mean, except with you. She is not good at maintaining that illusion. And
And
he
then
says,
Edward lays it out. He's like, you and I are such similar creatures, Vivian. We both screw people for money.
yeah, it's interesting. Like when he says stuff like this, I wonder if there was ever a time when someone like Donald Trump like would have ever said something like this, or whether it was always that sort of like, I just make
Right.
beautiful deals and everyone will be so happy, even
I
though
think
his
this
business
is where
history is like littered with actual
Mhm.
like non-payment and like deception and fraud.
I feel like this is when we're seeing that like Edward has some sort of self-awareness and like a bit of like self-loathing about what he has been doing
Yeah,
in his
because after this,
professional life.
he's soft as a sock. He's gonna go play some piano about it.
Exactly.
That's why you can't admit your flaws as a man. It's emasculating and you become overwhelmed by
right.
uncontrollable feelings. You turn to the arts. Like,
You
God,
turn
can
to
you
the
imagine? What a disaster. His masculinity is in tatters. And she is kind of drawn to this moment of self-awareness and vulnerability. She's like, what if we just like go inside and watch old movies and veg out all night? And he's like, veg out? And she's like, be still like vegetables.
I
Lay
think
like
that's
broccoli.
fun. Lay like broccoli.
It's so cute. It's so
This
cute.
is like my
It's
great.
favorite line of the movie, actually, even though it's
And he reacts like
inconsequential.
she said like cowabunga, dude. Like he's just not picking it
Yeah.
up.
There are these moments where I envision what their relationship will look like once the initial excitement of like, they're so different from me and
Mhm.
they're showing me something new about myself. Once that is worn off and you have to say something like, I'm explaining what vegging out is in a cute way. And he's just looking at me
And
blank. Like that
"Speak
sounds like
English,
a pretty
Vivian."
hellish.
Yeah, that stops being charming.
It's like a lady would never say lay like
And
broccoli.
she's like, yeah, if he wasn't 100 years old, he might not understand what I'm talking about.
Luckily, it's still the honeymoon
Because
period.
this
so.
does.
Yeah,
You play this out 3 more days, and it is the end of The Graduate.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That happens off
Yeah.
screen, thankfully. So yes, he does have to go play some piano about it. He's like, I can't watch old movies with you. I'm in my feelings. I have to go. And at 3 a.m., he's still not back. And she goes down to the lobby and discovers him playing the piano in the hotel dining room among the overturned chairs. And like people are still there watching. Like it seems like maybe some hotel workers and like
Couple of real sad
just like,
guys.
yeah, just people are hanging out just like at 3 a.m.
In LA? Come on. Nobody's up that late there.
A motley crew.
Yeah, everything
The bar,
closes
right, the bar
early in
goes
LA.
5 hours
It just sort of-
ago.
Yeah.
It seemed both sort of like very full of people and also like everyone knew they weren't really
Right.
supposed to still be there. 'Cause
Yeah, that I
the
think
minute
my
she
read
shows
was
up, he's like, "Good, get out of here," and they're all like, "All right,
Like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're
my read was that it
you're
was like
kicking us out of the
employees
bar?
Yeah,
who know who he is.
yeah. You're just some guy sitting at the piano. Yeah, I was like, these must be like
Yeah.
post-shift hotel workers or something.
Yeah, that's what I think. And they're like, we know this is
Right,
our
it's like,
VIP
Yeah.
client.
See you later, Billy Joel.
Yeah. They're like, we weren't even enjoying this. We just wanted you to feel good because
You
you're
were
a very
tipping
special
us
guest,
to
and that
listen.
is like a friend. As everyone leaves, she's like, so people always do what you tell them to do? It's like, yeah, you do. Everyone he interacts with is basically an employee, so it seems like it. And he just pushes her against the piano and opens her bathrobe. And he tries to kiss her on the mouth, but she swerves him and kisses his neck. And the scene cuts to black as he's like running his hand down her exposed breastbone.
I think
Forget
we know what
clavicle.
that means.
You're seeing like
Yeah, we're
full
going right.
sternum.
We're catching rib.
That's basically a nipple in the 80s or early 90s.
This was before they invented side boob as a fashion concept.
Exactly. They were like, oh, R rating.
Before HuffPost invented side boob as a topic.
Just a hint of rib.
Just a hint of rib. And the scene, of course, cuts to black, but I think we could all infer what happened in the dining room of the
Like,
hotel.
Are they having sex on the piano? like,
Seems
Look,
like a
good for
loud
them.
place to
hey,
do it.
guys, this is kind of noisy.
Can you imagine you've been dismissed and you're out, like, right outside the dining room
And you just hear,
start
like,
hearing,
Barry's like, call the tuner, be discreet. Yeah.
Tell him bright and early.
We don't know what kind of damage they're doing to this thing.
So the next morning, Edward wakes Vivian with a chipper. It's time to shop because she only got one dress at that whole appointment that she got with Barney, and she needs more dresses for a full week of being seen with
And she's like,
Edward.
I tried to shop, but all of the sales ladies were so mean to me. And Edward is not happy. He says, stores are never nice to people. They're nice to credit cards.
Great line.
Great line
Amazing
and
line.
correct.
And also, didn't he send her out with a fistful of cash before? Like, maybe he
Yeah.
should have
Yeah,
sent
well,
her
he
out
was
with a
like, I
credit
gotta
card.
break out the
That's
credit
on
card
him.
now. He's like, I have to break out the credit card because they will be nice to the
Yeah.
credit card.
The credit card conveys legitimacy. A fistful of cash does not.
And she was
You don't know.
not, she wasn't filled in that need at all. That's a little on her. She was presenting it like it came out of a piggy bank.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it came out of the toilet tank.
Mhm.
So Edward and Vivian head back to Rodeo Drive and they go into a boutique where Edward tells the manager, Mr. Hollister, maybe the founder of Hollister's, played by Larry Miller.
He's
This
like-
is all factual,
he's
right?
like, as many polo shirts as the lady requires.
One size only just for skinny girls under the age of 15.
I also always felt the need for hot male supervision to go into Hollister as a teenager. And he tells Mr. Hollister that they will be spending an obscene amount of money, not just profane, but really offensive.
This is actor comedian Larry Miller,
Yes.
who's really funny
Yes, he's
in
so
this role.
good.
He's great.
Even all of the minor parts are just perfectly cast.
Was he the dad in 10 Things I Hate About You?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And he's also in Princess Diaries. He's like the makeover. He's the stylist.
That's
He's
right.
really funny.
That role as the dad in 10 Things I Hate About You, though, is
It's
such
so
such a
perfect.
classic.
He just has that great deadpan of like Richard Gere going, we need to be sucked up to a lot. And he goes, you're a handsome man and a powerful one.
Yeah.
It's like so
He's like,
funny.
not me, her.
I mean, I'm sure it didn't hurt. Let's put it that way. So they're getting champagne. She's trying on everything. But then Edward gets a call that Mr. Morris is trying to mess up the big deal. And he has to rush back to work, leaving Vivian alone to finish her shopping montage. And Roy Orbison's Pretty Woman begins playing as we
Ugh.
see this montage. So again, we actually do also get the title of the movie being said in the movie. And it's like
By Roy
there it is.
Orbison.
By Roy Orbison. And she's being like doted on by the salespeople. She's trying on gorgeous clothes. A salesman gives her the tie off of his neck because she thinks Edward would like it. And she walks out aesthetically transformed. She's wearing a completely iconic outfit, this white
I love
button-up
this
midi
outfit.
dress with white gloves,
great.
a black hat, black clutch, black pumps, and drop pearl earrings.
She looks amazing. I feel like that her outfits in this movie are why I just have a really positive association with polka dots on women's clothing. And she's like, this taught me.
She's gone from like Love Island to like those influencers that I get served who are just like, people tell me that I dress like a grandma, but I'll never stop trying to dress classic. And it's like a hot 20-year-old wearing like a midi shirt dress with a belt and a hat and like gloves. Like she has completely shifted into the money look.
Mhm.
And now that she's ready, she walks back into the shop full of mean sales ladies. And she has some words for them. We have a clip.
Hi. Hello. Do you remember me? No, I'm sorry. I was in here yesterday. You wouldn't wait on me? Oh. You work on commission, right? Yes. Big mistake. Big. Huge. I have to go shopping now.
I love
Big
this moment.
mistake. Big. Huge.
I think
Classic.
sometimes I forget how like actually she plays this in the movie as sort of like casual and
Hmm.
like just sort of like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Like anyway, I have to go. Sometimes when people reference it, it comes off as more like angry and in your
Intense.
face, but she's just
Hmm.
like, anyway, I have to go spend my money now.
She's just like showing her shopping bag. She's like, big mistake. Big. Huge. I have to go.
It's almost like not to do too much Seinfeld on it just because of Jason Alexander, but it's almost like an Elaine Bennis comedy delivery.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's great. I love it.
And meanwhile, Edward is at the office, and it turns out Mr. Morse mortgaged everything he owns with a bank that Edward does business with. Perfect. Now he can destroy Morse
More
with one
corruption.
phone. This is just what he has earned through a long career of corporate raiding. The problem is just that his killer instincts are not what they used to be. And he's actually not feeling so great about taking over Morse Industries and breaking it apart for money. He's like, Phil, we don't build anything. We don't make anything. And Stucky is like, we make money.
That was
Which
the
is-
deal we made, bro.
We turn
that-
money into other, more numerous money.
I mean, that's what I always picture when I hear of like anything in finance. I'm like, there's money and you just stir it and then more money, right?
Stir it.
Yeah.
Stir the money.
Yeah.
Question mark, question mark. I mean, what he does is actually more like they take things and make them disappear for money. Like they turn stuff that existed into money, which I think is still a big part of the economy.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
also so is stirring a pot of money and waiting for more money to come out. So again,
Exactly.
Bitcoin mining comes to mind.
For sure.
So now Edward is at the point that Viv is also at. They're killer business people who have unfortunately begun to let emotions creep into their work. Edward really admires Mr. Morse and how he builds ships, and as Vivian has kind of clocked, he wants Mr. Morse to like him, even though
Mr. Morse is
knows
his
that's not-
stand-in daddy.
Yeah, Mr. Morse is his real daddy.
And we find out what happened to his real dad, which is even sadder than the fact that we know he died 1 month ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Edward returns to Vivian and she greets him in just the tie that she got for him earlier. She's like a sexy mannequin for him. She's like, I'm a rack for your gift. And it's this tie.
He loves it.
But she's also a rack for his naked body. They
And his
settle in.
emotions.
And his emotions. They settle in for a sexy bath and for him to sort of pour his trauma all over.
Yeah, this is
her
before we
listening
understood
ears.
trauma dumping. But that's what Edward is doing. He's
It's
like,
called
look,
bonding, Emma.
I had a music teacher mother. She wasn't rich. She married my father, very wealthy. My father left us. My mom died. I was very angry with my father.
Yeah.
Thanks to therapy, I can say that. I was like, Donald Trump could never. That is the
For
difference.
sure would it.
That is the difference between Edward and Trump. But he tells Vivian that is why he went after his father's company. It is the third one that he bought, and he sold it off piece by piece for revenge.
And then she said, what did your therapist say about that? And he goes, I'm
I
cured.
was cured.
Great joke.
So basically, like, he had a father who built stuff, and he hated his father so much that he made his calling destroying stuff. And now, fortunately, he has found a new healthy father figure, Mr. Morse, the founder of Morse Industries, so that he can instead desire to build things instead of breaking them down.
You nailed it. You understand him. You understand Edward, Claire.
Do you think Mr. Morse made his fortune initially by developing the code that bears his name? Do you think he was the one that came up with like, boop, 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 boop?
I don't.
I hope
think
so.
I think that
Did that predate him?
It did
Probably.
predate him. Yeah.
But
Yes,
here's what
I'm
I do
sure,
think.
but
I
in
think
my
that's-
mind, he did invent it.
I think that is why they named the character Morse, because they were like ship communications, Morse
His name
code. Morse,
James
that's a name.
Boat.
Mr. Nautical?
That can't be right. No, that's
No.
doesn't sound natural. Mr. Compass. Oh, we're so close.
That is, you know what?
Just one more round of brainstorming. We're gonna crack this thing.
Morse. Nailed it.
Boom.
Meanwhile, Vivian is like a receptacle for his like form. Like she is lying under him and she is like sponging him off. She is like literally sponge bathing him.
That-
She also
that's
has
kind
like
of-
the longest legs I've ever
Yeah.
seen. As a very short person, I was like,
She-
wow, what is it? What's it
She
like?
gives the dimensions.
Yeah.
I'll never know. I'll never know what it's like to have.
Right. She's like
44-inch legs.
Yeah.
44. Yeah. She's like basically like her two 44-inch legs are better than any therapy you could
They're
get. Just,
88
like, wrapped-
inches of therapy.
88 inches of therapy.
I was like, I find their banter so charming, but I was like, that one's a little clunky.
Yeah.
I see what you were going for.
And it's almost like
88 inches of therapy. How about love? Like, kinda, how do you measure?
and the movie, it's also a little bit like men really should, instead of therapy, date women. Like that's better than any
For
therapy.
you. Women will do your therapy for you.
What therapy could match the therapeutic quality
Woman.
of a woman embracing you with her legs while she sponge bathes
And
you?
he's just like smushing her down into the tub.
So the next day, Edward and Vivian head to a polo match because Edward needs to hobnob and do political corruption with Senator Adams of the Appropriations Committee. And Vivian needs to wear polka dots, which is what you do at polo matches.
Another incredible polka dot outfit that I love and think about often.
Great polo dots.
Brown. And like chocolate brown is back in a big
Yeah.
way.
Oof.
So
It's great.
Edward introduces Vivian to other hat-wearing, polka dot-wearing ladies.
The costumes here are really signaling like she has transformed. She has sort of become these women in aesthetics, even if she doesn't relate to them. One of them derisively refers to her as the flavor of the month. And apparently everyone is, quote, trying to land Edward. And Vivian's response, 10 out of 10. She says, I'm not trying to land him. I'm just using him for sex.
Great. It's great. She's so charming.
It's so charming. It's so perfect.
And this
Yeah,
is like
no,
a,
impossible
ladies.
not to like.
a direct rip from My Fair Lady, right? Where they go to the horse race scene, and that's kind of like where she's being trotted out in front of society for the first time.
Trotted.
Mhm.
As
Ba-dum-bum.
exactly.
Yeah, poor choice
You
of
must.
words.
You have to trot them out in front of the horses trotting out. I
Yeah.
also thought it was a little odd in this scene that everyone is like, "Oh, the flavor of the month," and like everyone's going after him. Didn't he break up with his live-in girlfriend like 2 days ago? Like no one
There-
is like reacting in
Right.
the way that you might expect to like, oh, he had a serious live-in girlfriend who was sort of from his class background and
Yeah, they're-
milieu, and she's still moving her things out of his place, and he's already bringing this random woman to an event.
Or are we supposed to understand that like that girlfriend was just one of many? Like he just
That he was
moves them in and
constantly
moves them
moving
out.
in.
But the ex that we see at the party at the very beginning, I feel like has like the most reasonable relationship to him, where she
Yes.
was like, I wasn't gonna wait around for you. You're great, but I have a great husband now. And he's like, your husband's very lucky. And you're like, oh, that feels like kind of a different tone than now, where they're like, he just brings a different woman around every month.
Yeah. We're
Right.
supposed to understand that this particular woman is just like bitter that she can't have sex with Edward.
Yeah. Well, she doesn't even want him for sex. She just wants to land him. That's why she and Vivian are different. But Stucky is there, and he is keeping the eye on his own bottom line. And so he is a little suspicious of this new lady in Edward's life, and especially when he sees Vivian chatting with David Morse. Is she a corporate spy?
Stucky, she just met this man at dinner. Calm down.
If she even speaks with him, she is certainly feeding
really
him
spins out
information at that
quick.
very
This
moment.
is where the corporate espionage happens in full view of your friends that work for another company
Yeah.
next to a horse.
Called
Next to
being
a horse.
subtle.
Yeah, you're like, well, the
This
horse
is what-
neighs. It covers up what we're saying.
This is what they had to use before they could use like those keystroke trackers and stuff. Before technology, you had to hire an escort and take her to a polo match with your target. And then Stucky he starts to just spin out. He's going to Edward. He's like, I think she's a corporate spy. Like, I don't trust her. You need to be careful. And Edward is like, calm down. She's not a spy. She's a hooker. And it turns out this was a huge mistake to tell Stucky because
Big mistake.
Big,
huge. Because unlike Edward, who carries no stigmas around sex workers whatsoever, Stucky is a bigot, and he immediately sees this as like ammo against Vivian. He sees her as beneath him and someone who can be treated like garbage. He's like, you're the only millionaire I've ever heard of who goes looking for a bargain basement streetwalker.
Streetwalker
Really nasty.
is used as a term multiple times in this movie, and I was like, not something we hear these days.
No.
Well, something that like is at most explicit, I think, when Stucky is talking, is that like a lot of what's going on with Vivian and Edward is really about class, like not
Yes.
necessarily like it's that it would be different for Stucky, I think, and for other and for Edward and for other people in their milieu if she were like a high-end escort who presented like she was accustomed to their class setting.
Oh, yeah, no, he's like, you literally grabbed her off the street like a
Right.
piece of trash.
Right.
Like she's like an urchin. She's poor.
Yeah, that's such a smart analysis too, because I think like he would treat her similarly, including like his sexual entitlement to her if she was like, oh, I'm like a cashier at a grocery store and I don't have a lot of money. Like he would similarly be like, you're trash to me.
Right. Yeah. Like exactly. There's a lot of this that's just about like the treatment that he thinks that she is comfortable accepting because she doesn't have money or resources to shield her. And he goes immediately to Vivian and like hints like, oh, that he knows who she is. He knows why she's here. And he suggests that maybe they could get together sometime after Edward leaves. And he like strokes her shoulder.
He's so lecherous.
Lecherously.
It's so, it gives me like the strongest ick.
And
Yeah,
again,
he's
it's-
such a creep in this
He's
movie.
such a creep.
It's sort of like the way that they, with Kit, throw off kind of the negative stereotypes about sex workers onto a different sex worker. And with Edward, they throw off the kind of like, I'm molding her sort of controlling vibes onto Barney, but they're also throwing off the kind of like creepy John stereotypes onto Stucky.
Right. Yeah, totally.
And-
right. So they get to be the kind of like pure-hearted versions of the thing of the like type that they are portraying.
Right, exactly. Like that's all true. Like Johns are disgusting, sex workers are, addicted to drugs and irresponsible, but not these two. And like sometimes one of them is different and they deserve more. When they get back to the Beverly Wilshire after this, Vivian is pretty pissed. And I have to say, she might need a lot of refinement in the eyes of these people, but she is better at controlling her angry outbursts than I would be, because I would probably do it at the polo match.
Yeah,
but
just
she
clock
waits until
him
they get back.
immediately. She has self-control.
Yeah. And she's like, what are you, my pimp now? Like, you think you can just pass me around your friends? I'm not some little toy. And he's like, I know you're not a toy, but like, you are a hooker and you are my employee.
I was like, wow, what a boss employee dynamic. Seems
Right.
real safe for everyone
She's going to
involved.
call HR.
Yeah. He's like, I'm sorry, facts don't care about your feelings. You're a hooker. Okay. That's a fact.
And then he says, which I think is like, he goes, I didn't think about what to say about us. And you're like, kind of like, huh?
Well, again, it's like this ludicrous overconfidence that's like everything always arranges itself in my favor.
Mhm.
Everything always works out for me.
Mhm.
And so why would I have to plan ahead about how to cover this up or present the information in a palatable way? He's
Yeah.
just like, it didn't occur to me that anyone would question me. And no one really did. They only questioned her.
I didn't think anyone would ask a woman questions.
Right. He's like, no one asked me these questions, so
Mhm.
it didn't occur to me that that would happen. And like he is questioned about her, and he doesn't really know what to say because he never thought that anyone would put him in that position. And she's like, "Well, I've never had anyone make me feel as cheap as you did today." And he's like, "I find that hard to believe," which
Yikes.
is pretty rude.
Very
And
rude.
this is where we're seeing the latent, like, he has a heart of gold, but isn't he still carrying some of those, like, hateful
Yeah,
stereotypes?
still kind of a dick.
Yeah, he's still making judgments. She gathers her stuff to leave and demands her payment. But then when he throws a pile of $100 bills on the bed, she just walks out without the money. And it's this that softens him. And he follows her and apologizes for being stupid and cruel and admits he got jealous when he saw her talking to David Morse. And he asks her to stay. And she's like, "You hurt me. Don't do it again." But she does stay. So both of them have like a major plot point where they have to like prove their humanity by walking away from easy money. But this is what proves that they deserve even more money, which is like the capitalist fairy tale of this movie.
and
It's like,
oh, sorry.
if you love something, let it go. If you love the money, reject the money, and even more will come back to you.
Mhm. That's beautiful.
It's so beautiful. I think it's something we could all aspire to.
Claire, this is your next book.
Yeah.
This is
I'm
the
just-
business follow-up to Men Are Lascivious, Women Are Censorious.
No one's ever written a book at all like this, so I kind of have to. And then we cut to Edward and Vivian laying in bed together as Vivian tells him her foundational trauma. She's a bum magnet. She followed a guy to LA. He ditched her with nothing. She worked fast food and she parked cars, but she couldn't make rent. She's like never met a guy who was worth anything, basically. And they're always just leaving her worse off. But then she met Kit. Kit got her into sex work, and she says she cried the whole time at first, but then she got some regulars. And Edward says, "You could be so much more." And she says, "Well, you know, the bad things people say to you about you are easier to believe than the good ones."
And this is like a fundamental signal that the movie does not think that sex work is like a legitimate profession
Totally.
that anyone should be like feel good about. They're like, you shouldn't be treated like shit for doing it, but you also should believe in yourself enough to escape it.
Yeah. It's like there's like another one that comes up later too, where it's not like, oh, you're a sex worker and a person and are worthy of respect and human dignity because of that. It's like kind of in spite of that.
Right.
Yeah. It's like there are good things about you too, you know? Maybe you should focus more on those and then you'll be better off. Yeah, there is again, I think they're also playing into this thing where like she really struggled with it. Like she's not like the other
Yeah, she
sex
cried.
workers.
It didn't come naturally to her. She's not like in her heart a sex
Yeah.
worker.
That's the gold part of it. And so like when there is respect that's offered to her or kindness or goodness offered to her, it's in spite of that. It's only about the other things.
So the next night, Edward leaves work early to take Vivian out on a date to the opera. She puts on that iconic red gown with the sweetheart neckline, the long opera gloves, and he presents her with a $250,000 diamond and ruby heart necklace, on loan, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And he snaps the case on her fingers as she goggles at it, and she just shrieks and shrieks with laughter. And my favorite fun fact about this is that was a staged practical joke on Julia Roberts. And it was supposed to be in like the film's gag reel. But Gary Marshall loved the take so much that they put it in the movie.
Leading man pranks are pretty soft. This is like in the Clooney zone of like leading man pranks.
Well, I think they were like, this would be a funny thing to put in the
Yeah.
gag reel. So
Yep.
can you do it? And instead, Julia Roberts is so charming that they were like, no, leave it in.
I mean,
great.
it also just seems completely in line with her character, which is that she has like what she's giving to him and what she offers is this like sort of unrefined, childlike joy and like excitement and good vibes that she's like bringing to everything around her.
It's so
And-
aligned with like singing Prince in the bathtub and watching I Love
Yes.
Lucy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like even as she's more and more getting more and more of like a glow up and more polished, she still has that like you don't want her to lose that sort of childlike joy and wonder that sets her apart from every other polka dotted woman. Like it almost is necessary to have this moment. So he whisks her into a limo, which takes them to a private plane, which takes them to San Francisco for the opening night of La Traviata, an opera about a courtesan's doomed love story with a member of the bourgeoisie. So
There's
a
meaning
little
there.
bit-
Come on.
I mean, I
That
don't
was a
think that's like
choice.
I don't think that's such an uncommon plot for an opera.
No.
That's like half of them, I think, but
Mhm.
still. They're sitting in the box even though he hates heights. Again, it's a moment of like even though he's uncomfortable being in like the balcony box, it's the most expensive seat, so he has to have it. And he's explaining to her that people either love or hate opera, and if they hate it, they may learn to appreciate it, but it will never really be part of them. But if they love it, then it will always be like part of their soul.
And
or
Vivian is a
something.
lady. So
Yeah.
it becomes part of her soul. She's
Yeah,
just
she
she's
bonds with opera
weeping.
right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like a
This
lady
is her
test. He's
art
like, if
form.
you like it now, you're a different kind of person than a person who doesn't like it right away.
And a better person.
Better.
Yeah, better, but significantly better.
So, and she bonds with it. So we can see she's a lady underneath, and she was always in the wrong place. She was meant to be here in the box. And that's kind of like the thing about rich people is that they love the opera and they love ballet. And that's because they have sort of like pure and more elevated souls. And you can tell that they're more ensouled than us because they
Ensouled.
love the
More
arts.
Ensouled is great. I miss when rich people at least like had to pretend to have taste.
I know.
I do agree with that.
Yeah, they like
Yeah.
it used to be like, oh, rich people are just here to fund the arts. Now
Yep.
it's like rich people are here to dismantle the arts.
I replaced the Statue of Liberty with a wicked big Cybertruck pointing
yeah,
up. You're like,
yeah.
Okay.
I know
This
poor people
stinks.
desperately trying to produce operas while rich people keep like grabbing the scenery and throwing it in the dumpster.
Why
Like,
isn't
it's-
this AI?
I'm gonna cry. It's so upsetting.
It's so bad. I think about it every day and it ruins every day of my life.
Same.
Yeah. So when they get back to Los Angeles, Vivian convinces Edward that he should take the next day off. Again, he's in the middle of a big corporate raid. So the
But
corporation
He's falling
might
in
get
love.
away.
He's
What if the
falling in
corporation
love, Claire.
What if the corporation gets away while
then he'll
he's
just
putting his
build
feet in the
things,
grass?
okay? He has to. He has to take his first ever vacation day so they can wander around the city,
Yeah.
grab a snap dog, pop a squat, and read Shakespeare aloud
Yeah.
from a book of Shakespeare quotations.
Shakespeare quotations. I
They're deep.
died at this.
This was what quotes, right? It's just printed out quotes.com or whatever.
Yeah. My favorite
Brainy
Shakespeare, I'd
quotes.
have to say his famous
Brainy.
quotations.
They're
think
squatting,
that-
they're snapping, and they're quoting.
Vivian even grabs Edward's like one of those giant 1990 cell phones.
Oh, yeah.
tosses it away and is like, remove your shoes and socks. They're literally touching grass.
He's
Yeah.
grounding. Like,
Yeah.
this is what the Maha influencers are doing now. He is connecting his feet with the electrical current
I
of
don't
the
think
earth.
Edward wants raw milk. I'm going to just say, I don't think that's his
if
brand.
he's still around today, he does. But They also get like hot dogs. I mean, I think that if this movie were made today, the twist at the end is that he would become a startup entrepreneur disrupting like hot dog sales or something. Like he would find his true
So bleak.
purpose building something related to this date. But after this beautiful day of touching grass, Vivian puts on a gorgeous white lace nightgown and watches Edward sleep.
But not in a creepy way. In a romantic way.
When women do it, it's not creepy. It's fine. Thinking that he's asleep, she kisses him gently on the mouth, and he stirs awake. She kisses him again. She's breaking her biggest rule, and they both know it. But that's okay, because they're in love now, and they have intimate, romantic intercourse.
And she
Honestly,
says it. She
it's
says,
very romantic.
I love you.
She says,
She says, I love you. And they fall asleep in each other's arms. I mean, it's a very romantic scene.
It's lovely.
And we know
it's their
we know everything's changed just in time for their final day together.
Ugh, it's so The Bachelor, honestly. It's like I finally confessed that I love you, and now it's our final day together. Decision time.
Yeah,
What's
one
it
more
gonna
date.
be? Last chance.
And he's
date.
like, Viv, I'd actually like to see you again. And here are my terms. I've gotten you an apartment and a car and a wide variety of stores guaranteed to suck up to you. But Vivian is like, I don't want those things. I want a love relationship. I was kind of like, maybe you should take the apartment. Housing's
Yeah. He's
housing's
offering her
hard to come
basically.
by.
He's offering her a promotion. He's like, I'm going to elevate you into like
Girl
the
on call
upper middle
when I'm in
class of
town.
sex work. Yeah.
I'll tell you,
Yes.
it's so rare that temp to perm works out. But
Right.
I was
But
like,
then,
it's a
and
real
is that the
opportunity.
moment to be like, I don't know if this is the firm that I really want to be starting my career at, or are you just like, hey, healthcare?
Like,
you
I
know?
respect that she wants love and,
and she gives the speech right about like what she always thought.
yes. She
Her-
says when she was a little girl, her mom, this is very traumatic. Her
Yeah.
mom
Yeah.
used to lock her in the attic when she was bad. So I was like, okay, you
Which
were
was a
abused.
lot. She
Yeah.
said.
You
Is
were
that not
abused
normal,
as a
you guys?
child.
Should I not be doing that?
Claire, you don't have an attic,
I
please.
don't have an
you, live
attic.
you live in an apartment.
It's the roof or nothing.
Yeah. You should put your 5-year-old on the unfinished roof. That'll teach him.
That'll teach him.
Yeah.
So she's locked in the attic whenever she's sad, and she would pretend she was a princess trapped in a tower by a wicked queen. There's that
Rapunzel.
Rapunzel reference. And a knight would climb up the tower and rescue her. And she says, but never in all that time that I had this dream did the knight say to me, come on, baby, I'll put you up in a great condo. Which, like, I see what she's saying, but like I think that the whole social and cultural context would be pretty different. Like
With a knight.
no one's gonna have like a castle. Yeah, it's like all gonna be kind of like I think that a handsome man putting you up in a great condo is pretty close,
It's not
to what the
bad.
knight would say.
Yeah, Dad.
But no, she wants the fantasy. She wants
Yeah.
the romance. He's given her enough of a taste of it that she's like,
She's like, why do I have to limit myself
yeah.
to just being someone's girl on call? I like
What does she?
want a
she
relationship with an equal.
She has that line about being his beck and call girl, which is like a little pun, a little wordplay.
Yeah. Yeah, she's both. And it is interesting that they went with Rapunzel for her because so much of her storyline doesn't really seem to have anything to do with Rapunzel.
It's much more Cinderella.
It's much more Cinderella, but then this sort of like fantasy of being in a tower
Mhm.
is sort of like grafted onto it. And then it's
Gary
instead of a
Marshall's
knight, it's
just
Prince
throwing
Charming.
shit in there. He's
He's
like,
wheeling and
we'll do a
dealing.
little Cinderella. We'll do a little Rapunzel. Don't worry about
Yeah,
it.
he's
I see it all.
Frankensteining it.
I have the vision. So
And-
this big conversation is, of course, interrupted by a call from Stucky. Morse is ready to meet. He's crumbling. And Edward's like, babe, I gotta go. I gotta do my corporate rating. And he tells Vivian that this is just all he's capable of right now. It's a big step for him, apparently.
I like, again, his last girlfriend is still moving out of their home. So it
Yeah.
does
Worry about
seem-
her. It's
like-
been 6 days. She's gone. Forget
But-
about her.
Don't
It just
worry
seems like he's-
about her.
It seems like he's taken bigger steps in the pretty recent past.
Mhm.
it's again, that girlfriend is like she serves some important purposes, but at other points it seems like they've forgotten about her
Yeah.
for the purpose of his character. And she said, Vivian responds, "I know, it's a really great offer for a girl like me." And he says, "I've never treated you like a prostitute." And as he walks out, she says to herself, "You just did."
Okay, so this is the other scene that I felt had that similar tone of like, oh, him treating her like she has the job she does is bad. Where it's like, I don't know, I think
Right.
maybe there are like ways that he doesn't treat her like a sex worker where he's like not respecting her time and like, you know what I mean?
Right. Maybe you should actually treat her with more respect as a
Right.
sex worker.
Right,
Like,
having
Right.
firm boundaries that he respects.
Right, like treating her like a sex worker is the same as not treating her with respect.
Correct, is what they're-
In the way they
Right.
both
Yeah.
talk about
Yep.
it.
Right.
Totally. And so it's
Yeah.
not just
Yeah, because
like
sex work is not respectable in anyone's mind, in the movie's mind, in his mind, in Vivian's mind. Like it
Yeah.
is inherently not something that like anyone should be doing.
and you get these twinges, right, of like, oh, this is like the politics of the movie. Rather, it's not just like something a character
100%.
feels. Like when Stucky talks,
No.
you're like, oh, he doesn't speak for the themes of the movie. He's like an antagonist and like a monster.
Right.
But when they're talking, you're like, oh, the
Yeah, it's
movie
this,
thinks this
like-
is bad.
It's like this benevolent stigmatization.
Yes. Yeah.
But we do get a really great scene with Kit right after this. I love Kit. I'm so happy she comes back.
Yeah.
She's
Kit
great.
is now in the place that Kit is in the pre-Pygmalion state. Like
Yeah.
she is now in the lobby in her revealing outfit, like making faces,
Arguing with the
at the
sphincter
counter,
police.
arguing with hotel management. She is uninterested in blending in, and she finally gets together with Viv and they sit by the pool for lunch, and Kit is just like gobsmacked. She's like, "I can't believe you're dressed up like a yuppie princess. I was afraid to hug you up there. I might wrinkle you." And she's like, "You wouldn't fit in on the boulevard looking like you do now. Not that you ever did."
She's
Because
not
she's
like
different.
other girls. And I do appreciate this next line because a nugget of truth comes from Vivian. She says it's easy to clean up when you've got money.
Which is, yeah.
True.
yeah, that seems fair. And like so much of the Pygmalion fantasy is just like, what if you gave
What if you had
someone a bunch
money?
of
And
money?
it's and
yeah.
and that's
You're like, we could do that.
Yeah, we
It's-
could just
the
do
government
that.
could do that.
and that's like kind of a line from a like it sounded like they had a few writers do passes on this from the
They
intro.
did.
And so like that kind of feels like a slightly politically, socially different version of the movie where she's like, the only difference between any of these people is that some people have money and other people don't. And it's not some like internal refinement. Like it's not operas in your soul. It's like someone took you to the opera when you were 6.
Right. It's just like
Right.
someone threw a bunch of money at you and gave you a credit card. That's actually
Yeah.
the difference.
Viv tells Kit about Edward's proposal, and Kit realizes as she's talking that Vivian kissed Edward on the mouth and fell in love with him. She's like, "I see what's going on here. Like,
You're in
you
love."
broke our rule and now you're in love. Did I teach you nothing?" And Vivian is like,
None of this
"I mean-"
mouth on mouth.
She's
We
like,
don't do that.
If I'm seeing you express a feeling, that means you kiss someone on the mouth. Don't play me for a fool. And Vivian is like, "Yeah, I really like Edward, but he'll probably just break my heart."
And Kit's
And-
like, okay, let's just lean into the fantasy. Maybe you guys could like get a house together, buy diamonds and a horse. It could work. It happens. I love Kit's idea of like what rich people do.
She kind
they
of
just
was
like wander
right.
around and buy horses.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's so true.
No, the horse part actually feels more accurate than the
Yeah.
diamonds.
They'd already done
I
some
know.
horseplay.
You get diamonds on loan. You buy your horses.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a bad investment to just lease a horse.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that. We've all read Claire's business book.
Yeah, exactly. We know.
Never lease a horse. That's the title.
And Vivian is like, okay, Kit, name one person that this is all worked out for us. One person like us. And Kit thinks, and she goes, I've got it. Cinderella.
It's good.
So we're back to Cinderella.
But
Like-
this is the only other time they bring up like, oh yeah, one of our friends was dead in a dumpster 7 days ago.
Yeah.
They kind
Yeah,
of,
Skinny
Yeah.
Marie.
yeah, Skinny Marie.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But that doesn't mean this couldn't work out for Viv. Don't let that put a
Mhm.
damper on
It
this
worked
whole
out
thing
for
she's got going
Cinderella.
on.
Mhm.
I think that Kit's role in this conversation is sort of interesting because she's initially like, this is so bad, you should never have like gotten your emotions involved, and then as soon as Viv is like, well, my emotions really are involved, she's like, great, you're gonna marry him and live happily ever
Mhm.
after. I'm like, what's her strategy here?
Mhm.
Like, what does she
She's
think
just
is
there to
going on?
support. Okay. She's like, do you need tough love? Do you need me to indulge you?
Right. She's
Do you need me to give
she's
you a
feeling
hug?
it out.
I'm here for it all.
Right. It's like when someone breaks up, you hear someone broke up and you're like, that piece of garbage. And she's like, I wish he would come back. And you're like, is the best guy I've ever known.
Yeah, exactly. So meanwhile, in a soulless office building, Morse is telling Edward that he is ready to capitulate on the condition that his employees are taken care of. Wow, what a guy. Edward at this point is like, everyone get out of the room, even you, Stucky. And he turns to
Even
Morse
the
and
worst
he's
guy
like,
I've ever met.
even the worst guy here, the worst man on earth. And he's like, Morse, you're my daddy. I have a new idea. I don't want to destroy your company. I want to build naval ships
A relationship with you
Yeah,
as your
I
son.
wanna- yeah.
Take me back. No, yes, he wants to
Tell
You
build
me
make
I'm
me
good,
want to
Dad.
leave the business strategy I'm with and start a new business relationship with you.
Yeah. It's so beautiful.
He's like, I'm ready for my kiss from daddy, and my daddy is you.
Yeah. And afterwards, Stucky is pissed, but Edward cannot be returned. Edward could not be deterred. He goes for a walk, takes his shoes off, and puts his toes in the grass. Vivian's impact.
Mhm.
We see it. He's
He's
touching grass
grounding.
again.
Mhm.
But back at the Beverly Wilshire, there's a ring at Vivian's door. It's not Edward. It's Stucky. And he's distressed.
This is the darkest scene in the
It's
film.
so dark.
It's
Yeah.
very dark. This is like a moment too where I was like almost surprised by how it conveyed the way that like anger and not just like desire can fuel sexual violence against
Yeah.
women. That he's
Oh,
like
it feels
projecting his
very
frustrations with
sharp.
Edward and his relationship with Edward onto Vivian as someone that he can kind of dominate and hurt.
And not even
to-
someone as something. Like she is an
Right.
object
And he's so
that he can enact his feelings on.
it's so explicit. He like says that. Like it's not
Yeah.
subtext.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So he shows up at the Beverly Wilshire and he just starts like ranting. Basically, he's like, when Edward was with me, he didn't blow off billion-dollar deals. I think Edward's with you. And Vivian's like sensing danger. This is not her first rodeo with dangerous men. And she's
Rodeo.
like, well, oh no, I walked right into that
Sorry,
one.
that sucks. No, cut that out.
Yeah.
That stinks. Kick me off the podcast.
You're canceled. Just kidding. She tells Stucky she's trying to like stave him off. She's like, Edward will be home any minute. And Stucky clocks the word home. And he's like, you are not the little woman. You're a hooker. Maybe you're a very good hooker. Maybe if I do you, I wouldn't care about losing millions of dollars. It's so sickening. And he like sidles up next to Vivian and starts stroking her leg and getting more aggressive. And she like he climbs on top of her. And she keeps saying like, get off of me, get off of me. And instead he like hits her full across the face and tackles her to the ground. It's like, it's so deeply harrowing.
It's really jarring.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's just very explicit violence.
It's just like a very there's nothing implied, right? It's like very explicit of like, he says like, I'm going to rape you essentially, and then hits her in the face. And you're like, oh,
Mhm.
wow, this is like an extremely upsetting thing to watch.
Yeah, it's very graphic. And I thought it was also like an interesting moment to kind of almost call back their motto at the beginning. Like, we decide who, we decide when, we decide how much. Because I think sometimes, and especially historically, there has been this sense that like or this belief that many people hold that like if you are a sex worker, you kind of don't get to say who or when. Like
Right.
you are putting it up for sale, anyone gets to buy it whenever they want. And
And
there is agency, within sex work, and they do face sexual violence. That is something,
that's a
that
very
is actually
real
a
thing.
very real and like a huge problem. And so to kind of see that unfold where she doesn't want to like sell her services to him and he's taking them anyway makes that very like graphic and visceral.
And that's where the movie has these like confused politics about sex work. In so many ways, it's like trying to have it both ways because they are
Yeah.
saying something that is like true here, right? Which is that these sex workers should have agency. They should have safety.
Mhm.
This is like they face real violence predominantly from men.
And not just men at like street level, public level next to the dumpster, like rich men are not exempt from this kind of like
Mhm.
Right.
inability to control their anger and tendency to take it out on women.
Yeah. And so much of like the way that we view sex workers historically has been like to kind of absorb those inconvenient feelings and desires that men have. And like we see it a little bit with Edward earlier that he fits that sort of stereotype of the guy who like hires a sex worker and then just wants to cry and talk about his
Mhm.
feelings. And Stucky is like a darker side of that. Like he has other feelings that he wants to use her body and presence to work out. But yeah, it has these confused politics. And I think when I went looking for more like perspectives from sex workers, like working sex workers on the movie, I found that there were a broad variety of reactions, partly because of this. Like there are
Yeah.
parts that felt really like empowering and progressive, and parts that felt really stigmatizing and regressive. It's just like kind of all over the map. Anyway, we return to a very violent scene. She's on the floor, and Edward walks in at this very moment and grabs Stucky off of Vivian. And Stucky is furious. He starts yelling about how she's a $50 whore. And Edward punches him in the nose and throws him out of the room. The knight he climbed up to the penthouse and rescued her.
Oy.
And then it's Claire, as you brought up earlier, right? He says, we did this together. Like you and I we had this beautiful thing going. And then Edward says, like you were talking about the doubling, right? He goes, you never loved me. You loved the kill. You loved like destroying other people's businesses. And it's like,
Yes.
I was just doing
Yes.
that because I'm a cool rich guy. You liked it, you
Yeah,
freak.
you liked
Yeah.
it. You
Yeah.
got off on it,
Yeah.
you creep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had like a libidinal excitement and
Mhm.
interest in like destroying businesses, and I just did it for money. I'm not like other
Not like
culture
other
capitalists.
CEOs.
Yeah, no,
I'm a
totally.
cool CEO.
I'm not like he would
So-
so be starting like a B Corp 10 years ago. So after Stucky leaves, Edward ices Vivian's cheek and assures her that not all guys hit. But she's kind of clearly like, oh, it seems like most of them do. Like, not my first time with this. And she's like, I'm just going to leave. You made me a really nice offer a few months ago, no problem. But now everything is different. You changed that and you can't change it back. I want more. She wants the fairy tale. Did this come out before or after The Little Mermaid?
After
Before.
Oh, is it before?
Right?
I thought Little Mermaid was
When did
89.
No, I think The
Nine
Little
for
Mermaid
some
is like, oh, it is 89. It is 89. You're right. It was after. I thought it was like 92. Okay,
Another
you're right.
Disney
89.
princess. She wants
Might have been
more.
the first
She
movie I
wants
saw
to
in
be.
theaters. Maybe that's wrong. Could be a false memory.
I used to watch it like on VHS every single day. And I guess I was a toddler. So yeah, I would have had to come out in the
We
80s.
had one of those big puffy VHS the cases
Oh,
that were
yeah.
like when you squeezed them.
Yeah, I had that one
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And I watched
Same.
it literally every day when I was 3 years old.
Yeah, my dad's he always thought that was like the most empowering one.
The Little Mermaid.
Because Ariel's so spunky. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
And
now I
she
watch that
can't
and I'm like,
speak.
She can't
Like
speak.
they're like, I think
She
it's so empowering.
she gets her voice
It's
back.
so
at the
empowering when they steal her voice and everyone still wants to make out with her. That's beautiful.
End. Between that and Beauty and the Beast, you really had all of feminism covered. To be honest.
This is practically the complete works of Bell Hooks right there.
Listen, it was slim pickings back then in like
Yeah, we did our best.
1991.
Okay, we did our best. We turned out okay.
Edward responds that his special gift is impossible relationships. He pays her the rest of her $3,000 and she goes to leave. Edward asks her to stay the night with him, not because he's paying her to, but because she wants to. And she's like, I can't. And I think you have a lot of special gifts. Like reading from a book of Shakespeare quotations.
Yeah, like destroying companies and going to therapy.
Knowing when the
Like
opera
flying her
is.
to the
Yeah.
opera. Honestly, most of his special gifts seem
Are
to
money.
be money.
I mean, yeah, those.
He was a good
that's
piano
pretty
player.
much it.
I'll give him that. He had some
Okay,
piano chops.
On her way
He
out,
can do political corruption.
That's right.
That's a gift.
You know one senator.
it's like that's a very possible relationship. On her way out, she says goodbye to Barney and he summons the driver to take her anywhere she wishes to go. He kisses her hand. She has graduated to being a lady worthy of his attention and respect through wearing nice clothes and knowing how to use
And
salad
he specifically
forks.
says, come back anytime. Where at the beginning he was like, you'll never come back here.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's like, you're basically my daughter now. Everyone's
sort of
having a
like-
lot of
or
parental
niece.
relationships. Or niece, yeah. Who can say?
It's
But
sort
not
of
a
like
sexy niece.
Not
it's sort
regular
of like he's
niece.
saying like
Classic.
Yeah,
I
classic
see
kind
now.
of niece you have sex with.
she's my niece, not the kind of niece you have sex with, a different kind.
The other kind.
The other kind.
You know.
More sort of original flavor.
Kind of.
niece.
She's kind of in the niece zone.
We kind of yeah. Well, anyway, the implication is that he's like, you're not a hooker anymore, right? Like you're not going to come back here and try to pull more clients. I can tell because you look fancy.
You've
And
worn polka dots and,
You've worn polka dots.
Shoulder pads. I was like, shoulder straps. Oh my God, my brain is
You've
gone.
conversed beside a horse.
Yeah, you've done it. You've done it all.
he can smell the horse on her.
But she sends he sends her away in the beautiful black car, and Roxette's "It Must Have Been Love" plays, and Vivian looks very, very mournful. Meanwhile, Edward is facing his fear of heights, going all the way out on his balcony.
Oh
What a
yeah.
guy. He's doing it.
You got to be careful in California, especially like if that earth starts shaking and you're all the way out on the
That
ledge.
giant railing she was sitting on isn't going to protect him from standing 3 feet away from it.
I'm getting anxious just thinking
Mhm.
about it. The next
You should
The next
take off your
morning-
shoes, touch grass.
The next morning, in her shared apartment with Kit, Vivian is packing up her stuff to move to San Francisco, a city for serious people who are not sex workers. It's a city for people who go to
That's
the
right.
opera.
Opera Town, USA.
She's gonna found a startup. Like she is turning her life around.
Finally, SBRT. They're going to put Sabrette out of business.
She
Hot dogs on demand, like you're saying.
she's just preparing. She's going to finish her high school degree, and she's like, one day I will be Sheryl Sandberg, the good adult at Facebook.
Yeah, a good one.
Yeah.
Have you read the new Facebook memoir yet?
Careless people. Yeah.
She seems cool.
Yeah, what I learned
she
is that
seems
they're
great.
all good people.
Why? What did they say about
Yeah.
Sherry?
A little careless, but no one's perfect. So she leaves Kit with some cash, which she calls part of the Edward Lewis Scholarship Fund. We think you've got a lot of potential, Kit DeLuca. All she needs is money to kind of change her, and she'll become worthy of.
I mean, I was
better
like,
treatment and a
honestly,
more secure
Kit
future.
was your mentor. I'm glad you're giving her some
Yeah.
money.
She should absolutely give her money. I love that. I don't think that Edward gave her enough money to give Kit a bunch of money
No.
to turn her life around and also turn her own life
I know.
around.
I was like, she probably gave her a few $100s, but it might cover like
Their
rent
rent
for the
seemed
month,
cheap.
which.
Because
Yeah.
she was like,
Yeah.
oh, I spent a month's rent on cocaine in one night.
Right.
Yeah, but she's like showing trust also. She's like, I trust that you're going to use this money for education and self-betterment. You're going to take some classes. And meanwhile, Barney is arranging a car for Edward to the airport with the same driver he gave to Vivian. And Edward gives Barney the necklace that she wore to the opera to return to the jeweler. And Barney says pointedly, "It must be difficult to let go of something so beautiful. You know, Daryl also drove Vivian
And that's
home
another one
yesterday."
of those like, is something the right word we want to create
Right.
that
Are we
parallel with
referring
there?
to this woman as a thing? Like, I see what you
Yes.
thought you were doing, but
Right. To
Something so
lose so much
beautiful.
beauty
Yeah.
from your life.
you're
One would hate to lose a beautiful thing, especially when you could stalk her
Right.
at her home.
I will give you her home address. You've earned it by paying her to have sex with her for 1 week.
Yeah, does Barney know that Vivian would like for her, John, to have her
Right.
home address? Or
he just assumes. We cut to a fast food joint where Kit is negotiating rent with her new roommate and telling her that she's looking into a beauty course because you can't turn tricks forever.
And then all
Wow.
of a sudden, she's turning her life around. All of a sudden, Edward darts into the shot, buying flowers. And then there's a beep outside of Vivian's window. Cue the opera music, presumably from La Traviata. I have no soul, so I couldn't tell you for sure.
Same. That was just an assumption I made. I didn't check. I'm so
I
sorry.
don't know the name of any song in Italian.
Yeah.
It's really hard to Google a
Opera-
passage
yeah,
of music without
exa-
lyrics.
that's
I
the
guess I
thing.
could have done
It's-
Shazam.
You know what? I'm sorry. I was taking notes on this half of the movie. I didn't fact check it, but I'm just going to assume. So Vivian looks outside. Edward is poking his body out of the limousine sunroof as a flock of pigeons scatter. It's very picturesque. And then we get this happy ending.
Had to be the top floor, right?
It's the best.
All right, I'm coming up. So what happened after? He climbed up the tower and rescued her.
She rescues him right back.
She rescued him. She taught him about grounding. She's going to help him create a startup where he builds an app to disrupt the hot
And
dog industry.
he's going to build naval destroyers cheaper because of his app.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
They couldn't have anticipated who rescued who culture back then.
Well, this was like a producer who was a woman who was like, we gotta add another line there. It can't just be like he rescues her.
Yeah.
So it's kind of tacked on.
We should give her some agency.
Yeah, this producer, Laura Ziskin, gave an interview years later. She gave an interview to People in 1991. And she said, I didn't want a movie whose messages would be that some nice guy will come along and give you nice clothes and lots of money and make you happy. That is the message of
for
the
sure.
movie. But I see what you were going
That
for.
he also
Laura.
has to go through some kind of
Yeah.
transformation as well.
Some kind of change.
Yeah. And he does. He does to an extent. Emotionally.
Well, it's like a lot of these movies, like the change for her is that she gets lots of money and her beauty is properly accentuated and framed and presented and she has resources. And the change for him is that he's not
Is
such
that he
an
stops
asshole
using
all the
his
time.
wealth to
Yeah.
destroy people's lives.
Right.
You know what? I love that for
Mhm.
everyone. It's
I
a
guess.
universal win, like for the
Everybody
world
wins.
that Vivian is doing. She's doing therapy. She's doing the work of therapy with her beauty and her
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah, her beauty is fixing him. They kiss, the music swells, and as the camera pans out, this is when we hear the words, "Welcome to Hollywood. What's your dream? Everybody comes here. This is Hollywood, land of dreams. Some dreams come true and some don't, but keep on
And this-
dreaming."
And this is a
To the
callback
very
to the
beginning.
very,
Yeah.
very beginning.
He's saying the same thing while we're
where
seeing.
we hear this same
yeah,
guy.
where the woman has been
Welcome
murdered.
to Hollywood. Right. It's like very, very dark in the beginning, and suddenly you're panning out, you're hearing him again, and it is like daylight in Los Angeles. Everything is
Yeah.
bright and happy, and the music is swelling.
Keep
And
dreaming. Maybe
it
you'll get to
is-
be Vivian Ward instead of Skinny Marie.
Doesn't even
But who
have a
can
last
say?
name.
But who can say? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, like the ending kind of reinforces all of the most like concerning
Yeah.
politics of and plays into like a lot of these sort of like narrative tropes of very fundamentally conservative stories about romance through the centuries. Like we've talked about 50 Shades of Grey, but you can go back to like Pamela, like one of the earliest novels. Like you have a disempowered, vulnerable woman who's at the disposal of a very wealthy man who thinks she's hot. But ultimately, because she sort of pushes back on him at the right moments in the right ways, he decides that she deserves to be rewarded and lifted
And
up into wealth and
you mentioned Beauty and
privilege.
the Beast earlier too, right? Which is like even for
Yeah.
children, like,
Mm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very deeply rooted trope in the romantic stories that we hear from very early ages. um, and so these moments, even when you can tell that the movie wants to be like Vivian is empowered, she like refuses to be a kept woman. She's insisting on more for herself. Those are like kind of genre
hmm
standard also.
Yeah.
Like Pamela is about the maid who refuses to sleep with her lecherous boss, and ultimately then she like gets to be the wife because she shows her virtue and chastity, right? Like that's like basically how this genre of story works. So it's not
Right.
really
Women have to
subverting
assert like
anything.
just enough agency in order to
Right.
prove that they are actually good enough to be a semi-equal.
Yeah.
And yet, like, so much about this movie is delightful and works.
It's the
It is.
panache.
You're right though. It's none of the like. It's not the bones. It's the panache.
No.
And
Yeah.
and it is, I mean, the performances are so charming.
Yeah. So should we end by rating this movie out of 10 shopping sprees on Rodeo Drive?
Yes.
Who would like to go first?
What would you give it, Josh?
I'm gonna go.
How many shopping
I'm gonna go
sprees?
7 sprees. 7 sprees out of 10.
That's a solid. Yeah, solid number.
I think that's what I was thinking as well, because the performances are so great. There are pieces of the writing that are like genuinely funny. There's so much that I love about this movie, and it really is like such a rewatchable movie. And yet, the politics
Yeah.
are pretty questionable.
It gets 2.5 Rebecca Traister reported New York Magazine pieces, but 7 shopping sprees.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might even go up to like 8 shopping sprees and 2 Rebecca Tracers. If we can divide it up.
Yeah,
that
it's somewhere
way.
hovering between a 7 and an 8, and yet I do ultimately love it.
And Josh, thank you so much for joining us. This was so much fun. Thank you for being so generous
Thank
with your
you.
time. Before you go, can you tell the people where they can find you and your work?
Thank you so much. I'm at Josh across social media. I have a newsletter called That's Marvelous that I write every Monday for free, joshgondelman.substack.com. I have a new stand-up special that is premiering on YouTube on June 27th at 8 p.m. and then will be available in perpetuity. After that, it's called Positive Reinforcement. I like really worked hard on it. I think if you enjoyed me goofing around here, I think you'll really like it. I would love if you gave it a watch, and if you like it, tell someone. And then my wife's book comes out the next week, and I quoted her, so I feel like I gotta plug the book. It's so good. It's called I Want to Burn This Place Down. Maris Kreisman, she's a genius and also very charming.
I am really excited to read Maris's book and
Oh,
watch
thank
your
you.
special, Josh.
Same.
Sorry to do so many
Must
plugs.
be nice. Two very talented people married to each other. It's
We have a
overwhelming,
lot of
even
fun.
to witness.
She's so brilliant. And then I do goofs.
You're also
Goofing-
brilliant. You're both
Goofing
brilliant.
is very
Didn't mean to
brilliant,
mention
as
that.
I'm always reminding my husband. My work is very important.
And mysterious.
Mysterious. Thank you so much. This was so much fun. It was such a delight to have you. And I'm sure that, anyone who listens to the podcast would love your special, which we're
Thank
very
you.
excited to see.
This
so
was
check it
such a
out.
joy. You two are so wonderful, and it was so generous of you to have me on. So I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Oh, we adore you. Come back
Thank you.
anytime.
Yes.
And on that note, that is it for this episode of Love to See It with Emma and Claire. Thanks to our wonderful guest, Josh Gondelman.
Love to See It is a presentation of Odyssey. The show is produced by us, Claire Fallon and Emma Gray. This episode was edited by Jonathan Behar. Our theme music is by Tamar Haviv, and our art is by Aaron Nestor.
If you like our show, remember to follow us, rate us 5 stars, leave a review, and spread the word to all of your friends about Love to See It.
If you want to get in touch, you can email us at claireandemmapod@gmail.com.
You can also find us on TikTok at Love to See It Pod and on Instagram at Claire and Emma Pod. And you can find our newsletter Rich Text on Substack at claireandemma.substack.com. I'm also on Blue Sky at Emma Gray and on Instagram at Emma Lady Rose.
And I'm at Claire E. Fallon. Special thanks to the team at Odyssey: Eric Donnelly, Aaron Constantino, Kate Rose, Moira Curran, Melissa Wester, Carly Snyder, and Hillary Schuff.
We'll be back soon.
Can you keep